It is so good to be back. Welcome back to the PFF NFL show. Trevor Sickman, Dalton Wasserman here with you guys to recap everything that we saw from preseason week 2 in the NFL. Appreciate everybody being patient with me as I went on a little bit of an extended honeymoon. Shout out to Max Chadwick for filling in on the seat, doing a wonderful job getting us ready for the season, giving you guys the preseason analysis that we had last week and some of the team previews and everything. Shout out to Max. Dalton, I'm surprised that you and Max, did you get into a little tussle like backstage? You guys host the college football show together, which is in full swing right now as you guys are previewing the college football season. Then you guys had to do all the NFL content together. You're not roommates, but you live in the same building. I feel like you saw enough of Max. I feel like you guys had to have some sort of a relationship come to Jesus at some point. Did fists get thrown at any point?
No, fist didn't get thrown. He wouldn't do that.
That's good. Okay.
He knows I would win. That's really the biggest reason they didn't. So that's not really the problem. No, doing 2 shows a day with him, it's a little bit stressful. We're going to get into the season here. It's going to be spaced out a little bit more. Going to be talking about games. Trevor, we have our first game preview this week. We're recording it today. Kansas State, Iowa State on Saturday, the big Week 0 Ireland game. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. So, no, listen, though. You're back here on the NFL side. And the only thing I'll tell you, I got a message this morning from the higher-ups, all right? They told me if we don't get anywhere near 1.3 million streams of the live stream or live viewers on this stream, we might be getting the axe. So, we got a lot of work to do.
I feel like Max is the biggest Taylor Swift fan, though. So,
by far, yeah.
For us to get Taylor Swift on the show, I feel like he probably would have been the person that we needed to have in this seat. He also knows he can't fight you because you've been taking the boxing classes. He knows that. You've been getting at it all summer, so he knows he can't mess with you in that regard. Very excited for the college football season, though. If anybody is listening to this show and isn't subscribed to the College Football Channel, you absolutely need to do so. And while we're at it, if you guys aren't PFF Plus subscribers right now is the time to do it. And I truly mean that. Sometimes we say that just like, now's a great time to do it. No, truly, this is the last day of the early bird sale. You save $20. It's $99.99. $99.99. I wish it was $9.99. $99.99. I'd probably be homeless if it was $9.99. But look, it's a phenomenal deal. You're saving $20 on a year-long subscription, and it gives you everything that you want. We have so many phenomenal tools over at PFF. People think that it's just the grades. It's not. The grades are a fantastic and worthwhile investment anyways. All 32 NFL teams are using our grades. They're using our data. They're using basically everything. And you can have that same sort of access to all that information. But for you, the consumer, man, it's so much more than that. If you play fantasy football at all, we've got the projections, we've got the cheat sheets, we've got the mock draft simulator for fantasy football. If you're into the draft, obviously, as we get further into the season, you've got all of that information, all the unlocked mock draft simulator stuff, all the strength and weaknesses, the analysis, the team building exercises, everything there. And then, of course, our new player prop betting tools, which are just phenomenal. I cannot wait to get into the season and use these things. It's such a great way to bet. Like, everybody wants to be a little bit more of an informed bettor. And at PFF, we have so much data, and now we've organized that in a way where it can help you bet more confidently. So it's phenomenal data there for you as well. Go check it out. Subscribe.pff.com. Use that early bird promo code. Save yourself $20. Save $20. That's almost 2 Chipotles for me. I don't know what that is for you, but save $20. So you get a great product. And what is that, like a Skyline meal for you? Is that 2 Skyline meals for you?
I could get 2 on that, or honestly, even in this economy, that's probably like 5 trips to Taco Bell, but that works. I'm not really a Chipotle guy, but yeah, no, I eat any of that. It absolutely works for sure.
See, you're getting a phenomenal product. You're getting access to all the data you could ever want covering the NFL and college football seasons, and you might get a free meal or 2 out of it if you sign up today using the promo code EARLYBIRD to get that $20 off there. So check all that stuff out. Let's get into the preseason, though. Let's get into the swing of things here. Let's go all the way back to the beginning of the weekend. Tennessee Titans and the Atlanta Falcons. We're obviously going to talk about a lot of different storylines that we have here for every single team. We'll talk about the starters as we saw a lot of them play here this week, what that means for the regular season, but also some of the depth players, right? That's the fun part of training camp, and we get a look at some of the rookies that we've been talking about for the last couple of months, some undrafted free agents that have a chance to maybe make the roster. And so we'll start with the Tennessee Titans here. The Titans end up winning this game by 3, 23-20. And like we do during the grades release show, we'll give you the top 5 graded players for every single team. So starting with the Tennessee Titans, because of course winners go first here. Their top 5 graded players on the day: safety Kentrell Brooks with a 95.7 grade. Love to start out with an elite 95.7 there. Tight end Gunnar Helm, the rookie. We said that we'd shout out some rookies here. 90.2. Wide receiver Elikai Omaner, my boy, 81.6. We'll get to that more in a second. Edge rusher Joe Gaziano with a 79.8. And then offensive tackle Jalen Duncan with a 79.3. On Atlanta's side of things, defensive tackle Simeon Barrow Jr. with an 89.5. Cornerback D. Alford with an 82.6. Edge rusher Arnold Ebiketie with a 79.0. Safety Henry Black with a 78.5. And defensive tackle LaCale London with a 77.3. Dalton, for the first time this season, I get to say, I'll start with you, my friend. What are we talking about here?
I'm going to go on the Falcons side first, and something I've really liked over the first 2 weeks of this preseason is just what we've seen from their young pass rushers. Now, Jalen Walker missed this game due to a groin injury suffered during the week, but I like what we've seen from James Pierce Jr. so far. He got to play 48 snaps in this game, got a really extended look, 4 more pressures, a 20% pass rush win rate, also solid in run defense. I think the same that he showed at Tennessee last year, where he got a lot more sound. Not necessarily the flashiest run defender because he's a little bit smaller, but he holds up relatively well and he does his job. I just think I'm really encouraged by what I've seen from James Pierce Jr., from Arnold Ebiketie who was one of their top 5 graded players. This is going to be a huge factor for this Falcons team. I think their secondary is pretty good, especially with Jesse Bates leading the way. We know their offense is going to be solid as long as Michael Penix continues to develop, but the pass rush was their biggest weakness last year, and I really like what I've seen so far through 2 weeks from James Pierce Jr., Arnold Ebiketie. If somebody emerges like Simeon Barrow, if it's Brandon Dorless, really anybody. And then when Jalen Walker gets healthy again, he's thrown in that rotation. So for a team with the second worst pass rush grade in the NFL last year, I'm really encouraged by what I've seen.
Yeah, and it's sort of the way that he won, right? I was watching this game, and you mentioned the production that he had, some really good pass rush win percentage numbers, but it's specifically when you go back to his scouting report, how did James Pierce Jr. win when he was at Tennessee? It was a lot of speed stuff, right? And I think that there were some concerns over, okay, well, when he gets to the NFL, is he going to be overwhelmed by power or maybe improved technique from NFL offensive tackles? And is that speed not going to show up as much? In a lot of the wins that he has had already, including one really good pass rush rep that his pressure led to an interception for the team. It was a major reason why they ended up getting that turnover, even though he doesn't get a stat in the stat books. We know that was a big reason why they ended up creating a turnover. It was that speed. It was that speed up the arc. He was able to create that separation, gave the offensive tackle a little pop, and then got through the outside shoulder. And what James Pierce Jr. does really well, and what he did really well at Tennessee, is accelerate up the arc. And a lot of pass rushers don't always have that ability, that flexibility, and that athleticism to be able to do it. We saw that in the short shuttle drills, the 3-cone drills that we saw from him at the combine, even on the field, but we certainly saw it in his college football career as well. So, Dalton, it was great to see what James Pierce Jr. did really well at Tennessee show up early on for Atlanta. I think that gives you encouraging signs. It's not just like, oh, he's been productive. It's how is he productive? And this is the way that we envisioned him to make a difference in the NFL. So I think that's going to be really important. And to be honest, they go up against Tampa Bay Buccaneers early on in the season, and they're going to be without Tristan Wirfs. And Charlie Heck has really struggled for them at offensive tackle, the guy who they think is going to fill in when it comes to the regular season. He has really struggled with foot speed and really being able to protect his inside shoulder and certainly make sure that he's not getting beat to the outside shoulder as well. If James Pierce Jr. is playing confidently and rushing confidently, that could be tough, and that could be a matchup that I think a lot of people would be probably picking the Buccaneers to win that game, but that could be a big-time X-factor matchup to watch out for. I'll flip sides. I'll go over to the Tennessee Titans. I want to talk about my boy Elikai Omaner, who I felt like I was one of the highest draft analysts when it came to where he was on my wide receiver rankings throughout the entire process. I really loved him. I had him as a top 5 wide receiver going into the college football season last year. And I think when people looked at Elikai Omaner, they saw the size, they saw his ability to be able to play on the line of scrimmage as an X receiver, but his speed is underrated. Dalton, he's a former track guy, a former track sprinter, and he suffered a knee injury early on in his college football career. And I just think that he was kind of working his way up to that. When we saw him this past week, he got 4 targets. He was a major part of where Cam Ward was looking specifically, which I think is a big deal. He consistently was looking Elikayo Maynard's way. He had a big-time crosser route, which he had a lot of yards after catch for, a 33.1 threat percentage, and then last week even a 21.3 threat percentage. Now, if you're new here, threat percentage is basically how often you are being targeted per route you are running. So how often are you the focal point? How often is the quarterback looking your way? Very clearly, Cam Ward's looking Elikayo Maynard's way a lot. And I think that chemistry starts in practice, starts in training camp. We're already seeing it in the game. I think that's going to carry over into the regular season as well. So not a surprise to me if he ends up being potentially wide receiver 2 on this team when it comes to targets, because we're already seeing the fruits of that connection there, Dalton.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Along with, you had the Van Jefferson drop on a really solid throw by Cam Ward, layering it over those linebackers. You've got Tyler Lockett, who's a veteran, but he's slowing down a little bit. I think you're really seeing who emerges as the year goes on, with these Titans wide receivers. Is it him? Is it Chimere Dike? Is it, Gunnar Helm had a really nice day at tight end? Is it an undrafted guy like Xavier Restrepo? It's going to be something to watch all season. Who steps up aside from Calvin Ridley in this receiving core? The more guys that do, the more success obviously this Tennessee team can have. They've got a solid veteran offensive line. They've got 2 solid backs in the backfield. We know Cam Ward is going to let it rip. I thought his accuracy in this game was a little bit spotty. The ball placement could have been a little bit tighter, but again, working out the preseason jitters, figuring out the chemistry with all these guys. That to me, he's already got it with Calvin Ridley. If Iamaner's the second guy that he can find that with, then you're going to have a lot better passing game than we might think going into this year for the Titans. But we're just going to be waiting on these young guys, especially Iamaner and I think DK as well as a speed threat, to be able to get vertical, because that's what Cam Ward wants to do.
Yeah, and look, obviously you want a quarterback to be as accurate as possible, but to be honest, the confidence was the biggest takeaway from me. I mean, he already stepped onto the field and he's like, all right, I'm back at Miami. I'm somebody who's going to sling the ball around. I'm going for a Heisman Trophy. Like, he was doing that kinds of stuff in the NFL in the preseason, which was great to see. And that's not the last time we'll talk about confidence with a quarterback here on this show. Next game, let's look at the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle wins this game 33-16, but as they say, the games matter, the results don't. So them getting the win obviously is good for a competition standpoint, but let's take a look at the top 5 graded players that we had here did Seattle win this game? We have it flipped here. Seattle won this game, correct?
Yes.
33-16. Okay, we're starting off with Seattle. Seattle's top 5 graded players. I was confused here with how we had it in the sheet, but offensive guard Anthony Bradford, he was the top graded player for the Seattle Seahawks with a 92.9. Center Jalen Sundell with a 92.4. Safety Jarek Reed, the second, with a 90.9. About 3 elite grades there for Seattle. You'll love to see that. Wide receiver Derek Young with a 89.8, and then offensive tackle Abraham Lucas. Just seeing him out on the field is obviously good with what he's gone through health-wise over the last couple of years. 82.4, but that's no surprise with how well he's been able to play when he has been healthy. On Kansas City side of things, tight end Robert Tonyan with an 89.2 is the top man there. Your boy, running back Rashard Smith with an 88.6 there. Good to see him. Linebacker Cam Jones with an 81.1. Cornerback Nazee Johnson with an 80.2. And then tight end Jared Wiley with a 74.7. Where are we starting with this one, Dalton?
So you like to see that in Seattle's top 5 there's 3 offensive linemen, because for 19 snaps in this game, you got most of what their starting offensive line is going to look like. You got Gray Zabel, you got Anthony Bradford, who right now is the favorite to start at right guard, you got Abraham Lucas. Jalen Sundell might be playing week 1 with an injury to Olu Oluwatimi. The only guy you didn't get was Charles Cross at left tackle. You got Josh Jones, but when those 5 guys, the starting 5, were on the field for Seattle, they had a 96.7 PFF grade together and a 93.6 run blocking grade. You can see already coming to fruition Clint Kubiak's outside zone schemes with this athletic set of offensive linemen. Obviously, the 2 North Dakota State guys inside in Zabel and Sundell. Bradford looked really good at right guard. Abraham Lucas looked healthy at right tackle. I think if you're going to envision the Seahawks run game, this is what it looks like. You're moving people laterally, you're crossing people's faces, you're opening lanes up for a set of really, really good running backs. You're opening up the play action game for Sam Darnold. And I want to get into Zabel real quick too, because he's looked really good in his first 2 games. Trev, they've run 11 outside zone plays this preseason with Gray Zabel on the field. He's gotten a positive grade on 6 of them, which is just a ridiculous rate. If you're anywhere near 25 to 30%, you're getting positive grades at a really good rate. He's over half right now. I know it's a very small sample, but the athleticism is popping for the Seattle offensive line. Clint Kubiak knows what he wants. He knows what he wants in these offensive linemen, especially with this competition that we have in the interior. It looks like Gray Zabel's locked in at left guard. The other 2 spots are still a bit open, but the vision is getting clearer, and you can see what he wants to do in this run game. It is going to be an outside zone clinic if Clint Kubiak gets his way with this offensive line in Seattle this year.
Yeah, forgive me if my reaction isn't higher for Gray Zabel being good. It felt like we knew that the second that we turned on his tape, and when we were back at the Senior Bowl, getting to see him play. You know, he plays offensive tackle, and at the Senior Bowl, he's playing center, played right guard, played left guard, and even in the first day of practice, we all noted. You go back and people could watch the day 1 recap of the Senior Bowl. We were talking about Gray Zabel. And so for him to be able to hit the ground running as an interior player in exactly what Clint Kubiak wants to do, which I think is really important that you pointed out, you got to love that if you're a Seahawks fan, because this was one of the worst interior offensive lines in the NFL last season. So for them to already be playing really well and having that chemistry, really important for Seattle. You didn't talk about him. I gave you first right of refusal here. You didn't talk about him, so I guess I'll talk about him. Brashard Smith, the running back out of SMU, who the Chiefs drafted this year. Man, he looked good. 88.6 overall grade here in this game. But really, I want to take a look at the last 2 games that he has played here for this team, because he's already got 3 targets out of the backfield through 2 games. And I think that's important because the Chiefs in training camp have been running him as that sort of versatile wide receiver, halfback type of a player that he is. He's got that wide receiver background to him, and they're not afraid to put him in the positions that they need to for him to be a good pass catcher for this team. When you look at the Chiefs last year, it felt like receiving production from their running back room was lacking. And Samaje Perine had the highest receiving grade of any of their backs last year. He had the most production. He had the most targets. He's no longer on the team. Kareem Hunt was next, and Kareem Hunt is still there, but I really do think that Brashard Smith can be a difference maker for this Chiefs team and give them something a little different, right? For as much as the Chiefs had a lot of wins last season, it felt as though even every week we watched this team and we went, yeah, but they're not as terrifying as they have been in years past. If we can even say that about a Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid led offense, it just felt like there weren't enough players that they had at their disposal to be as versatile as they wanted to be. And I really do think receivers out of the backfield was a missing link of their offense last year. Brashard Smith might be able to bring them some of that this year. And so I know you were excited about this landing spot. I'm excited about the production and the ways that they're already using him this preseason.
Yeah, it's an excellent landing spot for him, maybe the best one he could have gotten in the league. And you think about all those years, the way that they used Jerick McKinnon in multiple roles, both in the receiving game and in pass protection. I think Smith is able to do that. I even like to comp him to, say, somebody like Nyheim Hines in the pre-draft process. A guy, he is officially a running back, but he can line out. He can line up out at wide receiver anytime you want him to. He can be an effective outside runner even from the backfield, I think, especially against light boxes where he can bounce and really find some space. So I think Brashard Smith is going to fit right in on this team. We've already seen 1 7th-round back in Isaiah Pacheco have a lot of success there. I think Brashard Smith is the next one. I think he's going to work his way into this rotation.
All right, Panthers-Texans, next game here. Houston wins this one 20-3. Taking a look at the top 5 graded players that we have from Houston's roster. Linebacker Henry To'o at the top of the list with a 93.3. Offensive guard Juice Scruggs with a 91.6. That's very important as well because we talked about Seattle's interior offensive line struggling last year. So did Houston's, a major question mark for them going into the season. Linebacker Jake Hansen with an 88.7. Defensive tackle Tommy Togiai with a 87.8, and then edge rusher Danielle Hunter making it in the top 5, as he will probably most of this season, with an 82.8. On Carolina's side of things, got a couple of linebackers, a few linebackers, I should say here. John Radigan with a 90.9 at the very top of the list. Linebacker Trevin Wallace, who Panthers are really expecting a next step for him here. This young linebacker who really needs to ascend to really the focal point, I think, of the middle of that defense. Good sign seeing him with an 83.7 grade here. Linebacker Bam Martin Scott. You love when a linebacker's name is Bam. 79.5. Wide receiver Bryson Tremaine with a 77.0. And then safety Lathan Ransom. Man, you would talk about some rookies that people are excited about. I know the people in Carolina are very excited about Lathan Ransom. 71.0 grade in this game. But, man, it feels like he has been flashing all training camp as well. So, Dalton, where are you starting with this one? Carolina side or Houston side?
I'm going to go on Houston's side, and we're going to do this a lot this year with their offensive line and just trying to figure out who the 5 guys are going to be. Who are they going to play well? What's it going to be in preparation, especially for a big Week 1 game against Jared Verse and the Rams? They really need to have this unit settled. And something I found interesting is, you look at some of the latest depth charts that came out last week for Houston, and they've got their second-round rookie, Ariante Ursary, listed as their starting right tackle. But in these 2 preseason games with an injury to Cam Robinson, he's played every snap at left tackle, and if Robinson isn't recovered in time for Week 1, you're going to get Ariante Ursary, I think, as your starting left tackle, at least early in the season. And I think he's held up reasonably well. He had a 71.1 PFF grade in this game, didn't allow any pressures on 15 pass blocking reps. It seems like even though they ran a lot of zone schemes in the run game at Minnesota, he's getting used to the downhill and the double teams he's going to have to do in Nick Haley's offense here in Houston. I think the strength is evident. I think he's looked solid so far. It hasn't been spectacular, maybe like a guy like Will Campbell or one of the higher draft picks, but if he can at least be stable at that left tackle spot, that's going to be such a huge question with Laramie Tunsil gone now, then so be it, right? And obviously it's the position he's used to playing at Minnesota all 3 of his seasons. So Ariante Ursary was a guy I was looking at. I think he's played pretty well through 2 weeks, got better this week than he played last week, but I'm curious. We're monitoring this situation all across this Houston offensive line, tackles, guards, even the center spot. We think it's going to be Jarrett Patterson, but they really need to find a way to put the 5 best on the field. And if Cam Robinson is hurt, then Ursary is probably one of those guys, and he's probably going to start Week 1 at left tackle if Robinson's not healthy.
Yeah, and on the flip side of things, I think the storyline for Carolina is with their defensive line, given how much emphasis they put on that this past offseason. Now, I'm not really worried about the offense. It feels like Bryce is playing pretty confidently. The offensive line hasn't been as dominant. The first-string offensive line hasn't been as dominant as I've wanted them to be in Carolina, but I think they'll be fine. This is a borderline top 10 offensive line in the NFL, and they played really well through stretches last season. So I think that that's going to continue. The offensive weapons look good. Chuba Hubbard in the backfield there. They obviously can lean on him with a lot of confidence. And like I said, I just think that Bryce looks good. So the offense, I'm not really worried about in Carolina. The defense is still, I'm a little unsure about the defense because I get it. It's just a preseason game. But for as much as you're only going to see the starters for a couple of series, you do, if you're Carolina, want to have pretty good depth as well, right? You weren't just making additions to the starting level of your defensive line. You had to make additions everywhere. And Derek Brown's not playing this whole game. I think he barely played in this one. I think he played in that first series, and that was it. But Princely Amonmielen in this game was the only pass rusher for Carolina who had a pass rush grade above 70. Now, this is a Houston offensive line that I think they're a well-coached team with DeMeco Ryans. I think they are going to be better than what they were last season as one of the worst interior offensive lines in the NFL. Can't really get worse. But I thought that this would have been a moment for Carolina's defensive line to look a little bit better. Now, they're 18th in the preseason this year when it comes to overall pass rushing grade from their defensive line as a team. That's obviously an improvement from them being dead last in pass rushing grade as a team last year and pass rush win percentage. So you're trending in the right direction. I just wanted it to look a little bit better. And Dalton, it's also discouraging that Nick Gordon, now week to week with a collapsed lung that he suffered last week in the joint practices that the Carolina Panthers had. I mean, like, that is something that you really are going to have to monitor with him maybe over the next month. There's not really a timetable for when he's going to get back. As somebody who has collapsed their lung before, I can tell you that there's not really a linear timeline as to when exactly it's going to get better. And I, of course, didn't have to get better to then play an NFL game, which involves constant contact all the time. And so Gordon is somebody who we were excited about making this pass rush group a little bit better. Now with his status a little bit unknown, I'm not hitting the panic button or anything with Carolina. I think the offense is going to be good, and I'm excited to see them when the season starts out, especially with their first matchup being against the Jags. But that pass rush group, it has to be a lot better. Maybe it does when Derek Brown gets to play a whole game. I just wanted to see it a little bit better against a Houston team where I felt like they could have taken advantage. So I don't know. Do you feel like my worries, concerns, overblown, not warranted? I'm just a little concerned still. I think it would have looked a little bit better with Carolina.
No, I don't think it's a panic button. I do think it's warranted, but I don't think it's warranted any more than we thought going into this game because Carolina's front seven is by far the biggest question mark on their team. We like their offense. We like their O-line. We like the way Bryce Young is playing. I think their secondary will be better, right? Keeping both their starting corners, Trayvon Merritt coming in at safety. But I think the entire front seven, both in the run and pass games, is going to be the biggest question anyway, and the biggest reason that right now I would probably say they would still miss the playoffs because they have to be a lot better up front on defense. There was too many games last year where they just didn't stand a chance in the trenches. So the concerns are warranted. I actually don't think it's at a higher level than coming into the week just because they have so many complementary pieces and not necessarily one superstar unless Derek Brown comes back and plays like he did in 2023. But I think that's just a fact of life here that we're going to get in certain games and just go, man, their front seven wasn't good enough to keep him in it, right? It couldn't stop the run well enough. They couldn't get enough of a pass rush. And like you mentioned, if they went from dead last to 18th this year in a lot of pass rushing metrics, that would be a wildly successful season for that unit. I really do. When you think if Carolina had the 18th best pass rush this year, if you told me that was going to happen, I'd probably pick them to make the playoffs with their offense. Really, I mean, I just think their front seven is by far the biggest question. And I like the veterans they signed. I like the kids they drafted. It sucks that Skoritin is hurt now, but it's going to be a work in progress for sure. And even at the linebacker spot with not any veterans other than Christian Roseboom there, it's going to be a work in progress up front, especially against teams in their division that like to run the football.
Let's take a look at the Browns and Eagles next. Cleveland wins this game 22-13. Dylan Gabriel getting the start for the Cleveland Browns in what feels like, outside of the Dallas Cowboys, is the best reality TV show that we have, is who is going to play the most snaps at quarterback for the Cleveland Browns this season. Sorry to Tyler, our head producer back there. I'm sure that he's tired of hearing about it. Let's take a look at Cleveland's top 5 graded players as they did win this game. Linebacker Easton Macarena Arnold with an 84.3. Offensive guard Tevin Jenkins coming over from Chicago. He is second on this list with an 83.7. Offensive guard Javian Cohen with an 83.4. Always believed I had him pretty high on my pre-draft rankings, I think 2 years ago. And so I'm taking this as a scouting win. I'm going to take it as a win right here with him being number 3 here on this list with an 83.4 in the preseason week number 2. Linebacker Jerome Baker with an 81.0. And then safety Donovan McMillan with a 79.6. On Philadelphia's side of things, holy cow. Speaking of young guys standing out, Andrew Makuba. He is gunning for a starting safety spot, is he not? 95.7 overall grade in this one. Had the interception that was, we'll talk about that there with Dylan Gabriel, but he was the one who ended up picking off that pass. Cornerback Perry Nickerson with an 87.9. Linebacker Jahad Campbell with an 85.0. Cornerback Jacorian Bennett with an 84.0. And then linebacker Jeremiah Trotter Jr., a 79.6. Good to see some of those young guys and those names in there for Philadelphia. But are we talking Dylan Gabriel to start? What are we doing here, Dalton?
Yeah, I mean, that's the story, right? Everybody's favorite QB2 battle is here in Cleveland, with Shedeur Sanders and with Dylan Gabriel. And Gabriel, I thought, aside obviously from the pick 6 and the botched handoff, those are really the 2 big mistakes that dragged the grades down. He did look solid, and especially when he got to throw the ball on time. Trev, on throws that were released in under 2.5 seconds, he was 9 for 9 with 100 yards and an 80.3 passing grade. The difference you see between him and Shedeur Sanders is Sanders can create a little bit more late in the play. Obviously, as we saw last week against Carolina, he's got a little more improv to him. He's used to it from all the pressure he was under at Colorado. Dylan Gabriel wants to stand in the pocket, step up, and go through his progressions. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's just that you're going to get a lack of creativity, right? I think it's going to be a little more like someone like Tua Tagovailoa in Miami, where when he's on time and protected and able to make those throws, he can make them accurately in 2.5 seconds or left. Or less, I should say, and you're just not going to get a whole lot of creativity from him. So what we've seen are 2 solid performances from each guy. You've just gotten 2 very different performances, right? Shedeur attacked down the field a little bit more and created outside the pocket a little bit more. When Gabriel was protected, he looked really good in rhythm. It's when he gets out of rhythm and the pressure is on and he has to get late in the play where it didn't look great. You saw that on the interceptions. There was a couple other times where he wasn't quite as accurate as things started to break down. You get beyond that 2.5, 3 second mark. There's just not as much athletically to work with. I don't think he's as used to working around that with as quickly as he got rid of the ball in college and as well as he was protected in college there at Oregon. So 2 different styles. I think Kevin Stefanski really still has a decision as far as which guy is the second guy, but the way they've looked through a preseason game each, I start to feel like, especially with the injury, that Kenny Pickett is going to be the odd man out. And one of these guys is going to be QB2. One of them is going to get carried as the third quarterback. I think they've both looked solid in their own way. Gabriel, yes, he had the one bad throw. He had the pick 6 to Makuba, but otherwise he was efficient. And when he is protected, he can make enough throws to keep the chains moving.
Yeah, look, I think that Joe Flacco's going to be the starting quarterback for this team week 1. right? I think that everybody believes that. It would be a major shock to me if it is anybody else. You're talking about either, like you mentioned, two rookies or Kenny Pickett, who is sort of like a mix of both of those players that you mentioned, but he's not the rookie that you would probably rather start and give a chance to anyways to see if they have a higher ceiling. So I agree with you. It does feel like Kenny Pickett's going to be the odd man out here. I feel like Joe Flacco's going to be that starting quarterback early on, but I don't think that Joe Flacco is going to start the majority of the games this season. Certainly as we get into the second half of the season, I think they're going to want to see one of these rookies try to take the reins and give them the job there. But, well, I don't want to say give them. That's probably insulting. Earn the job is a better way to say it. It just kind of comes down to what kind of quarterback they're going to need in the second half of the season. Is this team really relying on their defense? Are they still in the playoff hunt at all whatsoever? Do they just need a quarterback who can really operate the offense well and, score a couple of touchdowns here and there, but maybe not light up the scoreboard? Maybe Dillon Gabriel is that guy. If they need somebody who could be a little bit more fearless for them, push the ball deep down the field, wanting to make those bigger plays, I feel like Shedeur over the last couple of years at Colorado has shown you that he wants to do that. So, when it comes to Gabriel, the eventful part of his day was unfortunately the pick six that he threw. He shouldn't have thrown it probably still, but there is context when you rewatch the play. Blake Whiteheart, the tight end, he's running a route to the flat. He gets bodied by the linebacker way too deep, and he ends up getting way too far up the field. And then Deontay Johnson's running a crosser, and Makuba basically pushes him down in his route to where all of a sudden both of those guys are there at the same time. I think Gabriel was throwing it to Deontay Johnson, but he probably didn't even see Makuba right there, because if you kind of think about it from Dillon Gabriel's angle, both the Philadelphia linebacker, I can't remember who it was, and the tight end, they were probably blocking Makuba. He probably didn't even know that Makuba was there. So all of a sudden he lets the ball out of his hand and Makuba basically comes out of nowhere. So look, is it an interception? Obviously it's interception, but we're all about context here at PFF, and that's sort of the context there for me. I think when you watched it live, you go, oh my gosh, what a horrendous interception from Dillon Gabriel there. And when you rewatch it and see the context, you go, okay, that probably wasn't as bad as it looked live. So just wanted to say that there. On the flip side of things, the guy who intercepted that pass, Andrew Makuba, it feels like he's making it quite the competition for who's going to start at safety between him and Sidney Brown. I love Sidney Brown. Obviously been banged up a little bit. Was suffered. He played through injury when he was at Illinois. Obviously, he has suffered some injuries here in the NFL as well. But man, I think that Sidney Brown is a really good football player. And even with that being the case, Andrew Makuba's making this tough because he is one hell of a player. And certainly the way he played last year, he played with his hair on fire. Dalton, I know that you know this, not just from a draft perspective, but being a college football guy, what Andrew Makuba meant to that Texas secondary, how fearless he was to come downhill and run defense despite being more of a slender build type of a player, not having a ton of mass on him, and then just the range that he could have as a really good athlete. He's showcasing that in the NFL already here in the preseason, obviously earning some elite grades for it like we saw there, that 95.7. And then on the flip side, man, I think that Jeremiah Trotter Jr., I know that this team drafted Jahad Campbell and they really like him back into the first round, but to have a guy like Jeremiah Trotter Jr. sort of waiting in the wings, and if you have any sort of short-term injury between Zach Bond or Jahad Campbell, being able to have the luxury of putting Jeremiah Trotter into one of those spots, knowing how high his floor is, how the guy is always at the right place at the right time, he's reading things the correct way. I mean, that is true. I've used the word a couple of times here, but luxury is the word. And so what a great depth player for the Philadelphia Eagles to have. And I'll even say this too, with the Eagles losing some players on the edge and needing some production on the edge this upcoming season, there's a world where you could put Jeremiah Trotter in at one of those off-ball linebacker, middle linebacker spots, and then you could put Jahad Campbell as sort of an edge rusher, because we've seen him do that when he was at Alabama, really good as a blitzer. Now, as a full-time edge rusher, okay, maybe not. That's a different craft that you sort of have to learn there. But I think that the better Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is, the more flexibility the Philadelphia Eagles have at that linebacker level, whether it's off-ball linebacker work or on-ball linebacker work with their edge rushers. So those two guys, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. and Andrew Makuba, I think they're going to give the Philadelphia Eagles valuable reps as they go on their Super Bowl defense run.
Makuba's going to be a huge factor. I thought it was a spectacular draft pick when they did take him. He's a perfect fit in Vic Fangio's zone coverages. And then I think it's good to mention with Trotter, and don't forget when he's healthy, Nakobe Dean in that mix too, with Bond, Dean, Campbell, and Trotter. To me, This is far and away, clearly, the best linebacker room. And didn't they draft Smile Munden also as like a fifth guy late?
Yes.
I mean, that is by far, it's not even close, the best unit of linebackers in the league. Bond was the highest graded linebacker in the league last year. Dean had a really good breakout season. Campbell was clearly the best linebacker prospect in this draft. I really like Trotter in college and now here with the Eagles in a depth role. You just talk about a unit of linebackers that, like you mentioned, you have that flexibility. Campbell can play off the edge. Bond can play off the edge. Fangio's messed around with a ton of different alignments with this team already. You have Trotter. You've got Dean when he gets healthy. It's just loaded. The number of, it just feels like the Eagles can do this. When you constantly draft good players, all of this depth is only helping you. To me, again, like I just mentioned, it's by far the best linebacker unit in the league. I don't even think it's close.
Let's talk about the Packers and the Colts. Green Bay winning this game 23-19. Take a look at the top 5 graded players here that we have for the Green Bay Packers. Tight end Johnny Lumpkin with a 77.7. Tight end Ben Sims with a 76.0. Safety Keaton Oladipo with a 75.8. Offensive guard Lasita Smith with a 75.7. Offensive tackle Jordan Morgan with a 74.6. And then on the flip side of things, on the Colts side, cornerback Chris Lamons with an 88.4. Tight end Jelani Woods with an 86.7. Tight end Tyler Warren with an 85.9. Boy, we got a lot of tight ends here on this show. We got tight ends showing up in the preseason. Offensive guard Luke Tenuta with a 85.6. And then wide receiver Anthony Gould with an 85.2. Dalton, what are we talking about here with this game?
I think we're talking about the biggest story of the preseason across the NFL, and that's the Colts quarterback battle. This is the one team that's really having a battle for their starting quarterback job, and these two guys look in this game relatively even. Jones had a 68 passing grade, Richardson with a 64. I think Jones through the 2 preseason weeks has been the better guy. Obviously, we know Richardson got hurt last week, and he wasn't hot on the blitz pickup and all of that stuff. But it sounds like Shane Steichen said he's very close to naming a starting quarterback. I think the favorite is still Jones, and I know everyone on Twitter is getting on him for missing the vertical throw to Tyler Warren, and he's not a great deep thrower. But to me, I think Jones should win this job. I just think what you're asking a quarterback to do in this offense, and Richardson's lack of accuracy, because even his passing grade in this game is held up by the one he made a fantastic throw to Anthony Gould, right? That was negated by penalty, but you just don't see the consistent accuracy yet and the consistent footwork yet, right? And the process taken to run this offense. And the two appeals with Richardson are going to be, yes, he's more athletic than Jones, but Jones is a decent athlete who can move a little bit and add to the option game a little bit. We saw that with the Giants as well. And he's got a better deep ball. But the logic of it to me, Trevor, and I know Daniel Jones is boring, and I know he's playing in this 15-yard box, but he's more accurate, and he's more accurate underneath on throws of under 20 yards in this preseason. Jones has a passing grade of 81.7. Richardson's is 55.6. He just makes the majority of throws better, even if they're not the flashy ones. And you have to think about it this way. 12% of pass plays last year were deep balls, were 20 or more air yards, okay? So Anthony Richardson might be significantly better 12% of the time, and I understand those are home runs, but that means Daniel Jones is better 88% of the time, at least as a passer. If it's me, I'd have to go with that guy. And I know, again, the fans may not love it, and at the end of the day, the most likely outcome might just be that this Colts quarterback situation isn't good enough, and we're going to talk about them drafting another one next year. If it's Drew Aller, Sam Levitt, Cade Klubnik, whoever, we'll get there when we get there. But I don't see much of an argument considering what the goals are in this and the weapons they have. Look how good Tyler Warren has looked. Look at this set of receivers they have on the outside. Then they'll get the
Mitchell
run
looks
game.
Good.
Yeah, AD Mitch. They've got 4 good wide receivers. They've got Tyler Warren, who, from what we've seen so far, looks like he could be an elite tight end. They haven't even played Jonathan Taylor in the preseason. They don't need to. We know they can run the football. I just think if you want to operate this offense, and I know it's boring, to me, I almost feel like it's the Moneyball approach of just like, hey, he gets on base. Richardson might be the home run hitter, but Daniel Jones gets on base in the passing game. That's what I'm looking for, because this offense with a quarterback who can throw me a 70, 72 passing grade, I think with the weapons they have, especially the way they can work after the catch, that's the direction I would go in. I get it with Richardson. I get it with the theoretical ceiling, but he just hasn't come out and won the job. And I expect Shane Steichen probably to announce Daniel Jones as the starter.
we talk a lot about storylines, scripts. I mean, we certainly talk about a lot of those things when it comes to betting as well, like with our PFF Plus betting tool, and how it's like, okay, this is how we think the game is going to go. So we do that, and then we look at game lines or player props and things like that. And so I think that understanding how a game is going to go, obviously we talk about it a lot from a betting perspective, but roping it into what you just said, it kind of comes down to how good the Colts defense is, right? If the Colts defense is really good, you don't have a problem playing Daniel Jones, because it's going to be a lot of West Coast offense stuff. It's going to be a lot of, okay, get the ball out of his hands quickly. We'll run some RPO stuff. We'll get him involved. We'll use his legs. But if your defense isn't very good and you got to be putting up 25, 30 points a game because your defense is giving up too much, then you might have to roll the dice with Richardson because he's going to give you the explosives. So to me, it just kind of comes down to how good this Colts defense is going to be. So I think that your assessment of the Colts quarterback situation is pretty correct. And to be honest with you, I think everybody wants Anthony Richardson to win the job. Daniel Jones doesn't, but you guys know what I'm saying. Like Chris Ballard, Shane Steichen, Colts fans, I think everybody wants Anthony Richardson to win the job. So the bias is sort of towards giving him that crack at the starting lineup once again. To me, if he hasn't earned that by now, it's hard for me to think that they would announce him as the starter and feel really good about it. Maybe they still will to give him that first chance at it to start the season, but to me, it just feels as though if Richardson was really going to win that job, we'd feel better about it. He'd have a little bit more reps and confidence, and I feel like the conversation would be a little bit different. So I do think that we're going towards a world where Daniel Jones is the starting quarterback for this team. I'm going to go to the Green Bay Packers side of things, and I mentioned, hey, we're talking about a lot of tight ends. We're also talking about a lot of linebackers here on this preseason recap show. How about Tyron Hopper, linebacker from the Green Bay Packers? I mean, he is making plays all over the field this preseason, specifically in run defense. 74.0 grade versus the Colts. So he didn't quite make that list, but he would have been, I think, the next player in there in that top 5. But an 88.6 overall grade in week 1. Played very, very well. Run defense grades above 73 in each of the first 2 weeks the Packers have played. He is also the highest graded Green Bay Packers defender, not just linebacker, defender that they have through 2 games in the preseason. So Tyron Hopper, he is a little bit lighter, more athletic, just that explosive, heat-seeking missile type of a linebacker. But sometimes when you're playing at a little bit of a lighter weight, coming from Missouri into the NFL, I think he struggled a little bit with that and really being able to sift through the chaos and recognize things well and make the most out of that speed. Here in the preseason, he is, and he's able to get by those blockers. There's a couple of plays where we're talking about mid and outside zone runs, those stretch runs where he is able to really sift past and get his shoulders under some of these climbing offensive linemen, get to the ball carrier pretty clean, and either make the tackle or affect the running lane, close the running lane, and allow somebody else to make the tackle. So I think Tyron Hopper has had a really good preseason, and I think that he had a really good game here for the Green Bay Packers.
No, I agree, and I think it's a big question at linebacker, especially moving beyond this year, because this could be Quay Walker's last year in Green Bay. Obviously, Edgerrin Cooper is a keeper, but I think you're really looking at Hopper maybe getting in that competition, if not this year, then next offseason to replace Walker as the guy next to Cooper in that linebacking core. The only other thing I want to throw out here with the Packers is, and I know I believe Matt LaFleur has come out and said that Rasheed Walker is still the left tackle, but Jordan Morgan has taken every snap in the first 2 games, 61 snaps at left tackle, and he's got a 91 pass blocking grade through the 2 games. You just wonder if there's obviously they tried him at right guard last year. It wasn't great, and he had the injuries. But I just wonder how much of an asset right now they feel that Jordan Morgan is at left tackle. Maybe not necessarily over Rasheed Walker yet, but you start to wonder again if they're preparing for the future, if they feel good enough about Sean Ryan starting at right guard, that Morgan is their left tackle at some point this season or obviously in the future, because I think it's the last year of Rasheed Walker's contract as well. So I'm just curious where that situation is going. It's something I'm keeping an eye on. I don't think he's going to be the week 1 starter at left tackle from what it sounds like, but Jordan Morgan getting back to left tackle where he played in college has looked really good this preseason.
Yeah, I think it's a really good shout out. I'm glad you made that shout because He's been fantastic as a pass protector. And I know that there was a little bit of, okay, is he a starter at guard? Is he a starter at offensive tackle? It really looks like he could have that home at offensive tackle, which is where he played at Arizona, right? And so it makes sense that, all right, maybe you're playing him at a couple of different positions, trying to find where he could fit as a best 5 member of the offensive line. Maybe that just was not in the cards for him last year. And now another year under his belt, more confidence. Clearly, he's playing with a ton of confidence this year, which Packers fans absolutely love to see. We're going to talk about the Patriots and the Vikings next. But before we get to that, got to talk to all the parents out there. Ask them a question. What does your child's future success look like for you? Is it them owning their own business, traveling the world with their family, just owning their house, living a comfortable lifestyle? Whatever that is, you can help them as a parent achieve that right now with a kids investment account from Fabric by Gerber Life. Fabric by Gerber Life was designed by parents for parents to make it easy to plan for and manage your family's financial path. With a kids investment account for Fabric, you can start investing in your child's future today. Kids can't invest while they're minors, but you can invest on their behalf and give their investments more time to grow. Whole thing is online. Setting up an account could take you as little as just 5 minutes, and then you just manage your child's account and monitor those investments right from your phone. Starts at $20, no contribution limits to it. Tax advantages, funds are SRPC insured up to $500,000. There's no commission fees to it. Just a low flat monthly maintenance fee. And it's not just about when they're older either. When they're younger, it could be just a fund for tuition, for sporting events, for tutors, things like that. And then when they're older, maybe you do help them buy that first house, buy that first car, start a business, whatever that looks like. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Start investing in your child's future today at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. That's meetfabric.com/PFFNFL, MEET, fabric.com/PFFNFL. Portfolios are managed by Fort Washington Investment Advisors Incorporated. Additional services provided by Apex Clearing Corporation. All investing is subject to risk. Learn more at meetfabric.com. All right, I'm actually pulling an audible here because somebody in the chat said, wow, I'm glad that Trevor's back because Max and Dalton were talking crap about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when Trevor left. You got some explaining to do. So we're going to talk about the Bucs and the Steelers game next. Tampa Bay won this game, by the way. As I've often said, results in the preseason absolutely matter. 17-14, Tampa Bay Buccaneers win this game. Let's take a look at the top 5 graded Tampa Bay Buccaneers here. Cornerback Kendall Vilder. I'm sorry for the production team. I'm throwing a curveball at you here. But he had a 90.0. Quarterback Teddy Bridgewater, new quarterback Teddy Bridgewater for the Buccaneers, an 89.3. Edge rusher Elijah Roberts with an 88.5. Cornerback Jacob Parrish, the rookie, looked good, 83.6. And then wide receiver Sterling Shepard with an 82.1. On Pittsburgh's side of things, since they didn't win this game, just letting you know, Dalton. Defensive tackle Keanu Benton with an 89.6. Linebacker Cole Holcomb with an 89.1. Cornerback Deshaun Jameson with an 85.8. Cornerback Beanie Bishop Jr. with an 85.3. And then safety Miles Killebrew with an 84.1. First of all, need to address the slander. I need to know what happened. Why are we down on the Bucs? What are we talking about here? I need an answer there. And then tell me what your takeaway is.
We're not super down on the Bucs. We have our questions, Trevor. I have questions about every team. It's what I do. I try to be the realist around here. Instead of you just blindly predicting them to win the Super Bowl or anything like that, I got to give you the reasons they may not do it, right? They got to cover over the middle of the field. I need a better version of Antoine Winfield. Tristan Wirfs is missing the first 4 games, and even you can admit that's a problem, right? I mean, apparently things could go to heck. Sorry, pun intended. Nailed it.
I hate you.
Yeah, I do. I know you do. That's exactly why I do these sorts of things. Rashad White got hurt, and all I had to hear, the only thing I heard about all week was Syracuse legend Sean Tucker from the guy.
Tucker.
I know. I trust me. If you only talk to Max Chadwick about football, you would think Sean Tucker is Walter Payton. I mean, it's unbelievable the amount of and he's a good football player, but. Coming from Max Chadwick, he's like the greatest running back of all time. Anyway, what am I talking about this game or am I continuing?
Yeah, you can
okay, am I going there? All right, I'm going to talk about the Steelers because clearly you don't want me talking anymore about the Bucs. Good to see Roman Wilson out there and healthy and being the deep threat that he can be. 2 catches, 72 yards, just under a 23-yard average depth of target. That's basically what you want him to bring to this offense because obviously DK Metcalf is one vertical threat, but Wilson is more of a movable piece. You saw him in motion a little bit. The deep post against Jamel Dean, he just ran right by him. If Roman Wilson is healthy, He's a legitimate deep threat that you can line up anywhere on the field, whether it's deep to the post, you can get him on go balls, you can get him on those deep over routes where he can just run by people man to man. All the same things that he did at Michigan that Jim Harbaugh and Sharon Moore used him to be the vertical threat in that offense. And then you allow guys like Jonnu Smith, Pat Freiermuth, Calvin Austin, the backs to work underneath. Again, every offense needs guys like this who can take safeties off the top. Roman Wilson, I thought, was really, impactful in this game. He's not going to be a high volume weapon, I don't think, but he's going to be a home run hitter that does make a difference and allows that space for everybody else.
Yeah, I know that Roman Wilson was, dealing with injury last season, but I was surprised that he was not in the mix more last year with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we talked this offseason about how he sort of holds the key, right? I mean, they've made some additions. Obviously, you bring in DK Metcalf, he's in, George Pickens is out, but if you have Roman Wilson, I feel like that really complements things very well for this Pittsburgh Steelers offense. And so him playing well is really, really important for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know Black as well played really well for them along the defensive line. Derek Harmon showed a lot of versatility as well. So the young guys, whether the rookies or second-year players, I think looking good for Pittsburgh, to me definitely means a lot there. I think Jacob Parrish playing really well for the Buccaneers also means a lot. They obviously drafted this guy within the top 100 for a reason. They believe in him, and they think that he's got a lot of versatility as an inside corner. He's somebody who can make plays in the backfield, had some really nice run defense reps in this game, and he just looked good overall. Tyke Smith was really good for this team as a nickel defender last year, but I think they want to move him more back to that safety spot to play next to Antoine Winfield Jr., and they can do that if they have Jacob Parrish that they can lean on confidently as a slot defender, because hopefully, you've got some sort of mix of Benjamin Morrison and Jamel Dean and Zion McCollum on the outside. Jacob Parrish could get in that mix as well, but he's probably the most likely candidate to be able to be a slot defender that you love. And then, of course, you could play Tyke Smith a little bit deeper, like I said, with Antoine Winfield Jr. And so I think the secondary looks a lot better if you have a lot of confidence with Jacob Parrish. Obviously, Emeka Egbuka gets the touchdown as well. It just feels like an embarrassment of riches there with the places that Baker Mayfield could throw the football this year, even when you throw in Jalen McMillan as well, Bucky Irving out of the backfield. I feel like this Buccaneers offense is going to be fantastic even without Liam Cohen this season. But I really do think that Jacob Parrish sort of holds the key for that Todd Bowles defense to be as versatile as they want to be. So I think that him looking good is important for this Buccaneers team.
Can I let me throw one more thing in here? And I know it hopefully doesn't have a huge effect on the season, but is there anybody who's had a more fascinating career arc than Teddy Bridgewater? I mean, as well as he played in this game, and you talk about, obviously, first-round pick out of Louisville, that he's decent with the Vikings. He has a darn near career-ending knee injury, comes back with the Saints and plays well for Sean Payton, bounces around, coaching high school, wins a high school football state title in Florida last year, gets snaps in the playoff game for the Lions like a week after signing, and now is he walking into Tampa and winning this backup job with the way he played in this game? I mean, Teddy Bridgewater, it's an amazing story. It feels like his entire career has been like this wild roller coaster of just eventful thing. Maybe not in the grand scheme or making a difference and winning a Super Bowl or anything like that. But if he walks in here now after playing in one game last year, after coaching to a high school state title team, and now he's the Bucs backup in a really good offense. If he did have to come in, man, oh man, he's got enough weapons to work with. But I just find it so fascinating that this guy continues to come back, and anytime he steps on the field, still plays solid football.
I've said this before. If he does not suffer that knee injury, the way that we talk about Bridgewater obviously would be completely different, because that injury was a major derailing part of his career when he was at Minnesota. But I really do think that we talk about a guy who's been a starter in the NFL for the last 10 years. I really do. Now, I don't know if he would still be a starter like to this day. Obviously, he's still got some juice, So obviously, he's showing us that he can still make it happen at this age, late in this stage of his career. So maybe that would have been the case. But I believed in Teddy Bridgewater a ton in that 2014 draft class, and I was so high on him. I think I had him QB1 in that draft class, and he was somebody who I really loved watching the way that he played the game. I just loved the confidence. He was one of the first quarterbacks that I watched as a draft analyst where I looked at his ability, and it's like, okay, yeah, I think the arm is adequate for the NFL. It's not the greatest arm in the world. He's not the most mobile quarterback in the world. I think everybody knows that's not necessarily a calling card to his game. He's much more of a pocket passer. But I watched the way that he operated the offense when he was at Louisville, and I watched how confidently he played the game. And a confident Teddy Bridgewater, in my opinion, whether it was at college or in the NFL, has always been able to play. has always been somebody who can go out and get you a win. Now, is he going to get you a win every time? Is he going to win 13 games for you every season? He's going to compete for an MVP award? Obviously, I don't think that it's quite that caliber. But he is somebody who has always, in my opinion, had starting caliber traits. He has been a player that if you need him to win a football game for you, he can. Now, I'm not saying, again, I'm not calling him like Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes and saying that he will, but he certainly can. And I think that he should be the QB2 for this team, because if Kyle Trask was good enough or gave this staff enough confidence to be that number 2, Teddy Bridgewater wouldn't be on the team. And so I think for the way that he has played and the way that he played this past game, to me, it tells you that he should be the QB2 going into the season. Obviously, he's fresh. Obviously, he's motivated. He's excited to be back. So it's good to see Teddy Bridgewater back in the league. Somebody that I've always rooted for, even going back to his time at Louisville, obviously. And I think that him still having a career, him still being in the NFL after that knee injury that he suffered when he was with the Vikings, it's just great to see. Speaking of the Vikings, talk about the New England Patriots and the Minnesota Vikings with our next game. New England wins this game 20-12. We got a lot of rookies to talk about in this one. For the Patriots, as the winners of this game, Brandon Crossley, their cornerback, was the top-graded player with a 92.2. Wide receiver Efton Chisholm III, the training camp preseason darling for this team, 86.8. Edge rusher Anthony Jennings with an 82.3. Wide receiver Matt Collins with an 82.3. And then safety Jordan Polk with an 80.2. On Minnesota's side of things, Nick Van Ette, their tight end, with an 89.6, the top-graded player. Defensive tackle Jonathan Harris with an 81.2. Edge rusher defensive lineman Elijah Williams with a 76.2. Offensive tackle Henry Byard with a 75.1. And then linebacker Dorian Mousey with a 73.9. How do we feel about this one? Let's talk about the Patriots. What do you want to talk about here with them?
I think if you're a New England fan through 2 weeks of preseason in general, you just feel really good, and you feel really good about this rookie class. You just list off some of the grades that these guys have gotten through 2 weeks. Will Campbell, 86.2. Efton Chisholm. Look, there's something in the water at Eastern Washington on that red field with these wide receivers. We know this already. We've seen it once with Cooper.
They can run some routes, baby.
They can run some routes on that red field at Eastern Washington. Efton Chisholm, 85.6. Travion Henderson, 80.2, plus the kick return for a touchdown last week that doesn't factor into the offensive grading. That's a separate special teams grade. Jared Wilson playing a little bit of center and left guard, 69.5. Even a guy like Braden Swinson off the edge, 67.8. You just feel really good about the early returns on this rookie class so far. We haven't seen a ton of production from Kyle Williams, but the route running has been good. They just got to get him the football. And I think this was the idea, right? You buy veterans on defense to fill that out and have your offense not, being required to do as much. And then you just need some of these young pieces on offense to gel together, right? And I think, the offensive line, I think Will Campbell's looks spectacular, especially in the run game. He brings an element of nasty that this offensive line didn't have last year. Then you're going to have Strange and probably Garrett Bradbury on the inside with Owenu and Morgan Moses on the right side. I think your offensive line looks stable. The weapons, right? You have Stephon Diggs. You feel good about Kyle Williams, Pop Douglas. Now, if Efton Chisholm is all of a sudden what Patriots fans think is, the next coming of Julian Edelman or whatever, you suddenly look at last year's 2 draft picks at wide receiver and Jalen Polk and Javon Baker, and you go, are they even going to make this team? And if that's the case, and this rookie class is going to be this good, especially on the offensive side, and then Travion Henderson's the star of the show in the backfield right now, you start to feel really good about the direction this New England team is going, just in general, especially offensively. That's really the X factor. I think their defense is going to be really good. I think it could be a top 10 unit in the NFL this year, especially with this new coaching staff. But if these young offensive pieces are going to play well, this feels like the second best team in this division right now. That's just the big X factor, is these kids taking it into the regular season and then Drake May making it all function, as the captain of the show here.
I remember day one of the Shrine Bowl. We're watching these players warm up before practice. And I had not watched Efton Chisholm before this. And I see him out there, and I watch him run one route where it was just sort of like an in-breaking route where he got off the line, and that was just for his air. It wasn't against a defensive player or anything, but he showed a very quick release. He got up to the break point of the route. He gave a little hesitation with his shoulders, and then the way that he put his foot in the ground and changed direction and immediately accelerated, I was like, okay, like, what do we have here? And to be honest, I wish I would have been a little bit higher on him throughout the draft process, because the separation and the route running, that nuance, when you are this good at it, it will play. It translates to the NFL. And I think that we saw that from him. The more that I went back and I watched his tape, the more that I continued to see that at East West Shrine Bowl. The thing is that these guys just they don't often get a chance because he lacks the size, right? He's a much smaller wide receiver. There's a lot of players who are sort of his size, of his build. Sometimes the NFL looks at these guys and feels like they're a dime a dozen. But other times you can find players who could really make a difference because of how good they are as route runners. And I'm telling you, the way that it feels right now, Jalen Polk and Javon Baker do not make this team. I mean, you listed the wide receivers that you feel like are locks. I mean, it's at least 4 locks on this team with Stephon Diggs, Mac Hollins, Pop Douglas, Kyle Williams. I mean, those are at least the 4 locks that you have.
Kayshawn Boutte also.
What'd you say?
Kayshawn Boutte also, who played well last season as well. I mean, that's already 5 right there. I forgot about it. You have Kayshawn Boutte, too. I mean, that might be 5 guys that they feel better about than a 2nd and a 4th round pick last year.
And for like wide receiver 6, like if you're holding 6 wide receivers on the team on like for the active game day roster, you have Kendrick Bourne. Now you have Elton Chisholm. It feels as though Jalen Polk and Javon Baker are going to be outside looking in type of play.
Hell, they have Mac Hollins too. Even they signed Mac Hollins.
I said Mac Hollins.
Oh, did you? Okay. I mean, you do. You have an overload right now, and I mean, I think it's fine if there's going to be a couple of rookies, especially that come in and play well and take spots. I don't think that's an issue at all for it. And look at the types of guys with a lot of those that you're talking about: Diggs and Kyle Williams and Chisholm and Pop Douglas. You're talking about legitimate separators, and I think that was the biggest problem that you had last year was that there was just nobody that could separate at all. There just weren't great route runners, really. So I mean, you're really feeling good about what is around Drake May right now. He's just got to bring it down in the consistency and make the throws. But I'm with you. I think it's a way better set of weapons for a team that had no weapons last year. There's a lot more speed on this team, especially with Williams and then Henderson in the backfield, and then this offensive. I'm telling you, Will Campbell. You know, there was a lot of people that questioned would they have taken him over Abdul Carter or should they have taken him 4th overall. From what I've seen so far, I have no issue with Will Campbell starting at that left tackle spot for them.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I'm with you. I was firmly a Will Campbell is an offensive tackle to start his NFL career type of guy because I felt as though, and the conversation's interesting with him because I think we talked about him similarly to how we talked about Peter Skoronski, right, when he was coming out of Northwestern. And the interesting point with the Patriots and Will Campbell is that Mike Vrabel was the head coach of the Titans, when they draft Peter Skoronski. And they immediately just had him at guard. Like, they did not give Peter Skoronski a chance at all whatsoever. And so when the Patriots, obviously sitting there at number 4 overall, they're in the Will Campbell range, their pre-draft thoughts of like them being interested in Will Campbell. They obviously have to get better along the offensive line. I was a little worried because I was like, man, if Vrabel does the same thing and he just immediately puts him at guard, like I feel like we're going to potentially miss out on a guy who's really good at tackle. But the second that they drafted Will Campbell, they said, no, he's an offensive tackle. We're putting him at tackle, and he looks really good. And I'm glad that Mike Vrabel is giving him that chance there. On the other side of things for the Minnesota Vikings, I'll stay in the trenches but go to the defensive trenches. I'll shout out Elijah Williams, their defensive lineman, defensive end, defensive tackle, just a versatile player for them in Brian Flores' defense. He's playing really well. Undrafted free agent from Morgan State. I think certainly Vikings fans know about him. I think some people around the NFL know about him as well. Has the school record for career sacks and tackles for loss. And yeah, when you're playing at a school and getting backfield production, you got to be athletic. You've got to have that sort of pedigree to your game and talent level, but you also got to be smart. You've got to understand things really well. And the thing that I really like about Elijah Williams is he's smart. And I think the PFF grades early on, these first 2 preseason games, they showcase that. 81.4 overall defensive grade through 2 games. That's the highest on the team for players that I think have played more than 10 snaps for them. And so it's great to see that from Elijah Williams, who is an undrafted free agent, making his case to make this team because this is a revamped defensive line, right? Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave, Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins from the draft, and now you throw in Elijah Williams as well. Very clearly, they wanted to be better on the defensive interior, especially when they were in their odd fronts as a 2-gapping team. And I feel as though Elijah Williams is exactly that type of player who could play as a 4-eye, 3-4 defensive end, but he can also play as a 3-technique defensive tackle when you go with your even fronts because of how well this guy can control the line of scrimmage, how well he understands the game, walling blockers off, getting to the right spaces, and then picking his timing to get into the backfield and make some plays. He's really showed some good stuff this preseason, and I think that he's a strong candidate to make this team as an undrafted free agent.
No, it's a great call. Anywhere they can get an interior pass rush, because they're good off the edge with Van Ginkel and Grenard, and we know they're going to blitz a lot. They've got a guy at middle linebacker like Ivan Pace who can blitz also. But I think when you talk about this team having the 5th worst interior pass rush grade in the NFL last year, they've set out to fix it. You mentioned with the veterans first, Hargrave and Allen, but any young kids that they can find to do that as well and rush between the tackles, it only makes their entire defense better. I would say this and last year probably depth in the secondary were their 2 biggest weaknesses, and I think they've really gone out of their way very nicely to fix both of those things this year. Brian Flores is going to have a lot of fun with this unit.
Yeah, I'm loading up Elijah Williams' grades last year from Morgan State. Last year, he played the most snaps of any player on their defense. He played over 600 defensive snaps last year at Morgan State, 91.0 overall defensive grade, 85.8 run defense grade, and a 90.2 pass rush grade. So the grades check out for this guy being able to stand out. That's why you guys need a PFF Plus subscription. Come on, you find these draft diamonds in the rough with some of these PFF grades that we'd like to shout out here. And obviously, you can follow along in the preseason when they're playing well as well. Next game, Dolphins, Lions. Miami wins this one 24-17. Top 5 graded players that we have here for the Miami Dolphins. Cornerback Ethan Robinson at the very top of the list with a 90.0. Offensive guard Josh Prevey with an 89.1. Wide receiver Theo Weiss Jr. an 85.9. Wide receiver Dwayne Eskridge with an 85.8. And then offensive tackle Ryan Hayes with an 81.3. On Detroit's side of things, safety Eric Halleck with a 91.1. Wide receiver Jackson Meeks with a 90.7. Quarterback Kyle Allen with an 84.9. Edge rusher Isaac Ukwu with a 83.3. And then the talk of the town here in Detroit this training camp and preseason, wide receiver Isaac Tesla with a 78.6, including some tough contested catches there. All right, what do we think about these Lions rookie wide receivers, including Tesla? What'd you think about it, Dalton?
Yeah, I think it appears that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes really have a type at receiver, and it's tough guys who can make contested catches, right? Isaac Tesla, 4 catches, 2 of them contested, including the highlight reel touchdown on down the left sideline that everybody loved down on the front pylon down there. And then I even want to mention Jackson Meeks also. Look, this is a guy who didn't play much in 3 years at Georgia. Fran Brown brings him with him to Syracuse, where last year had a really solid season, led all wide receivers with 21 contested catches last year, converting them at a 60% rate, which is outstanding. I think you're talking about the depth of this Lions wide receiving core being better than ever. You obviously have the top 3 right now in St. Brown and Jamison Williams and Tim Patrick there as another solid veteran, but when you have guys like Isaac Tesla and Jackson Meeks in these situations, such competitive football players, both have excellent hands. Obviously, they basically spent 3 third-round picks on Isaac Tesla, so they know they believe in him. They wanted his toughness, the hands, and even there's been, I think, was it Penei Sewell? I heard somebody mention that Tesla is just an outstanding blocker in the run game as well. That's going to be a big factor, so St. Brown can do that a little bit less, and you can just get another big body in there to block for this dynamic run game. The Lions got to be really excited about what they have at wide receiver. Obviously, the stars that they have, in the starting role, but these 2 guys, I think, were really good this weekend. Tesla's obviously going to have a role, and maybe even Jackson Meeks, closer to the bottom of the roster, is going to be a player to look out for too.
Yeah, our fantasy projections as well. Nathan Yonke really likes Tesla. He's pretty bullish on what he could be this upcoming season. You can see that in all the other fantasy rankings when you guys get a PFF Plus subscription. If you don't have one, like we said at the top of the show, use your promo code EARLYBIRD. Save yourself $20 right now. You're getting that PFF Plus subscription. It's not just the fantasy stuff. You see all the grades, you see all the draft stuff, all the betting tools, all the good stuff. I'm just saying, you get a PFF Plus subscription. If you do it now, you save $20, maybe a couple free meals, depending on how much you eat. For Dalton, it's just 1. Maybe other people, it's just 2. If he's going to Skyline. No, you said you get 4 out of Taco Bell though. You're efficient with Taco Bell.
If you really scrounge and you work the value there, you could absolutely eat for like a week at Taco Bell, no question.
We're all about getting the best value at Taco Bell here at PFF. Okay, for the Dolphins, though, I want to shout out Jordan Phillips. defensive line, right? We talked about defensive line, offensive line for the Miami Dolphins had to be way better this upcoming season. And Jordan Phillips is a really good step in that direction, the defensive tackle from Maryland. He didn't make the top 5 for this week for Miami. He had a 74.7 overall grade in this game versus the Detroit Lions, but an 83.6 overall grade for the entire preseason. That's the second highest on the Lions defense. And I think they really need this guy, especially just the way that he plays, right? We talked at the beginning of the show how James Pierce Jr. wins and how what we saw at Tennessee is still what we are seeing now in the NFL. That is very, very important. You don't want to see a guy winning in ways that you didn't expect or that their skill sets don't normally show you, because that's often a very unstable way to win. You can't really replicate that a lot. For Jordan Phillips, he's winning with strength. And this was a guy who, yeah, the measurables were a little bit smaller. He's a little bit smaller in height, has smaller of arms, and I can understand the lack of length there. But what the guy can do, he could put his arms forward, he could put his hands straight into your chest, and he can bulldoze you straight back into the pocket. And he did this. There was an exact play against Detroit center in this game where you could tell he's like, all right, pass rush rep, I got the green light, I'm going to bull rush this dude. The ball was snapped, he takes one step to his right, he puts both of his hands inside, right on the center's chest, and he dog walks him back into the quarterback's lap. I don't even know if he got a pressure for it because technically he didn't get off the block. But when he understands, okay, I'm going to take 3 steps and then I am going to stack and shed this offensive lineman, now you're talking about even better production for Jordan Phillips. So to me, I think that him standing out is really important for this team. They draft Kenneth Grant for that reason as well. Having Jordan Phillips and just more additions along the interior of their defensive line is going to be really important for those edge rushers and linebackers to be able to stay free and make plays. So great showing from Jordan Phillips. Glad that we have seen him show out for the Miami Dolphins in an area that they have really needed for with this upcoming season.
Agreed. I think their run defense is the one thing, and especially in their defensive line, that's going to be okay. And they lost Calais Campbell. Kenneth Grant has looked spectacular through 2 weeks, especially in the run game. And Jordan Phillips, I'm with you. When the Dolphins get in these 5-man fronts, I've always thought Jordan Phillips, his best alignments were when he was head up over offensive linemen, especially head up over the center. It can do the exact things that you just talked about. I think the one thing that excites you with this Dolphins defense, and we got a boatload of questions in the secondary, we got questions on the offensive line, but this defensive line with Chop Robinson, the rookie year he had, Kenneth Grant coming in, Jordan Phillips, Jalen Phillips getting healthy, Bradley Chubb getting healthy. This defensive line is really the one redeemable part of this defense right now, and I think especially in run defense, they're going to be a solid unit.
All right, next game we're talking about San Francisco 49ers and the Las Vegas Raiders. San Francisco wins this one 22-19 here. Top 5 graded players that we have here for the 49ers. Safety Jalen Mahoney with a 91.4 at the top of the list. Quarterback Brock Purdy. Looked pretty good, Dalton. 90.5 overall grade in this one. Cornerback Chase Lucas with an 86.4. Gator great wide receiver Demarcus Robinson with an 84.9. And then wide receiver Robbie Chosen with a 79.4. Artist formerly known as Robbie Anderson, of course. Las Vegas Raiders. Safety Jeremy Chin, at the very top of this list, a 92.5. Good to see the newcomer making a difference there early on. Tight end Brock Bowers doing what he does best with a 90.0. Quarterback Geno Smith, 85.5. Tight end Carter Runyon with an 83.1. And then quarterback Aiden O'Connell with an 81.2 as well. Don't often get 2 quarterbacks in the top 5. Good to see that. It's good to see that from them. By the way, before we start this one, and I go to you here, Dalton, for your first talking point, I saw Jordan Rodriguez, who does an incredible job covering the league for The Athletic. She came up with the nickname for Brock Bowers. Cause did you see that he followed in your footsteps and he just decided like, all right, I'm just gonna shave. Now you haven't gone like full Brock Bowers with it, but he totally shaved his head. It's totally clean shaven. And Jordan Rodriguez called him Flex Luthor, which I think is an unbelievable nickname for him as a flex tight end player, now with the completely bald head like Lex Luthor in the Superman comics. I just had to shout out Jordan Rodriguez for that one because I gave as many clapping emojis as I possibly could when I saw that one on Twitter. That one's unbelievable.
No, that's perfect. And as much as he's about to dominate the league for the next probably decade, I'm glad he could follow my lead. You know, it's just that's if you want you want to be elite. I'm just taking from our producer Quinn back there. I mean, it's really just it's working its way. The lineage it's gotten from him to me and now to Brock Bowers. That's the type of influence we want to have on this show for sure. I actually have another question. You know, how do you get to be chosen? Like, I want to be chosen? Maybe. What are we getting chosen for?
I don't know if that's in the cards for you. I don't know
That's
if you
not-
could
okay.
be. I don't know if you could be Dalton chosen.
I can't get chosen. Okay.
No,
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 I
no.
certainly know. If it was a last name.
Actually, chosen Wasserman actually sounds a little better. I could get down with that.
That could work. I don't know. I mean,
You know?
I get maybe. Should that be my third middle name? I already have
I
two.
think Chris has to call you that on the draft show. And then if he does, then we can officially sort of rename you. We could change all the lower thirds and you can change your Twitter handle. But I think Chris has to
Do I know
call
what
you
I'm getting chosen? What am I getting chosen for, though?
No, you're getting chosen by Chris. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, okay.
He's choosing you. You know, like he's renaming you.
Oh, okay.
I think that's how it goes.
Oh, all right.
At least around
would
here, I
work.
think
All
that's
right,
how it
we'll work on that. We got a long way to go. We'll work on that for
I
sure.
don't know if
Flex
I am going to
Luther,
work
though.
on
That's
that, but maybe you could work on that.
okay.
Who are we talking about in this game? Who you got?
What did I have? Oh, the star of the show, of course, the highlight everyone loved, Ashton Ginty. Look, last week everybody freaking out. 3 carries, -1 yard. He's a bust. This is the worst 6 overall pick ever. He wasn't playing behind the starting offensive line last week, or at least not most of it. Starting offensive line this week. 7 carries, 33 yards, touchdown, 77 rushing grade. Ran over Diamondor to Lenore. That's the big highlight. Everybody was talking about the explosive run. You could even see on the one short reception he had. Ashton Ginty's going to bring a level of physicality to this running back room that just did not exist last year. And wait till they really start blowing holes open in Chip Kelly's system in the regular season, and he gets in the open field. And you can see the speed as well. I would be surprised if he wasn't close to everything that we've seen at Boise State. I know he was the most dominant back. He had one of the most dominant seasons we've ever seen last year, but Chip Kelly wants to run the football. You can see the weapons in the passing game, and obviously Geno Smith with the arm that's going to open things up for him down low, because you have to respect this team vertically. You know, obviously Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers, Dante Thornton, Jack Besh, all of that on the outside, but Ginty in the run game is going to be an absolute horse. And anybody that was doubting that after 3 carries in the first week of preseason, relax, please. Like, it's going to be fine. I mean, he's a freak. I mean, this is why he got taken 6 overall. I know it's a small sample, but the physicality, the yards after contact, the power, and the speed that he's going to run with, he's going to be fantastic. I'm a huge fan of him, and I'm glad we got to see him behind the Raiders' starting offensive line this week.
Yeah, not worried about Ashton Ginty at all whatsoever. You know, I'll be worried about Ashton Ginty entering year 3 of his NFL career if he is underwhelming through the first 2 years. Certainly not through one preseason game.
People did the same thing with Bijan Robinson after his rookie year when he actually just didn't get enough carries, and then look what he does last year, and he's like a top 3 or 4 back in football. I mean,
yeah,
can we just let the kid play? Honestly, I know he's a 6 overall pick, and Robinson had the same thing. He was 8th overall, but just let him eat for a bit. Watch what happens. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch with this offense.
I think the biggest takeaway here from the 49ers side of things is that Brock Purdy looked great. I mean, Brock Purdy looked like he normally does. Cool, calm, collected. He had the big time throw over the middle. I mean, he looked great. But outside of Brock Purdy, I think that Chase Lucas playing really well is really nice for this team, because they've got some young guys that are fighting for some spots. Upton Stout, Renardo Green. Okay, they have Diamondor Lenore, who has played on the outside. He's played in the slot. Where do you best align him with those other guys there? And I think that Chase Lucas, who comes over from Detroit, he is showing that, okay, like he could be a factor here as well, because Lenore played really well as a slot corner last year. But when you have a guy like Lucas who is playing this well, especially in man coverage situations, I felt like when he was matched up in man coverage, in the slot specifically, he played really, really well. 88.5 overall grade so far this preseason, 87.0 run defense grade, and that 83.0 coverage grade as well. He had a pick and a sack this past game against the Raiders. I think he's really good slot depth, and he's somebody who gives them a lot of versatility and allows them to sort of use Diamondor Lenore wherever he fits best, whatever gets the best cornerback group for San Francisco this season. So him playing really well, him having a little bit of experience, and I don't want to call him like a seasoned vet. He's only been in the league a couple of years, but him having that experience, I think, is really good to lean on, because it could very well be a starting cornerback group going into the season of, Renardo Green's on the outside, Diamondor Lenore's on the outside, Chase Lucas might be on the inside in the slot, unless I'm forgetting somebody else. If I am, I apologize. But it could very well be that starting lineup and that starting trio there. With how good that Chase Lucas is playing this preseason. So he's definitely making a difference, which is good to see. Let's move on to the Ravens and Cowboys game next. The Baltimore Ravens win this game 31-13. Top 5 graded players that we have here for the Baltimore Ravens: wide receiver Anthony Miller at the very top of the list with a 90.3. Defensive tackle Jason Jones with an 86.8. Offensive guard Andrew Voorhees with an 85.9. Linebacker Jay Higgins with an 83.1. And then center Corey Bullock with an 81.8. Cornerback Andrew Booth Jr., pick 6 in this game, a 91.8. He was the top graded player for the Dallas Cowboys. Cornerback Troy Pride Jr. with an 83.8. Tight end Princeton Fant with an 83.4. Linebacker Jack Sanborn a 79.2. And the defensive tackle Ernest Brown IV with a 76.7. What's the big takeaway here from this game, Dalton?
I'm going to go on the Dallas side. I'm going to go with one positive and one negative. The positive is it's the first game we saw Tyler Booker, and I thought he played reasonably well. I believe it was a 65.7 PFF grade, held up well in pass protection, still figuring out the run schemes and just what Brian Schottenheimer wants to do. But I think it was just good to see him get out there and get reps after not playing in week 1 and play solid football. He's going to be probably their starting right guard. The thing I'm worried about, and this is not news, I've talked about it for months on end, is I know it's preseason, but this Cowboys run defense does not look any different than it did last year. I mean, I've got guys through 2 games struggling. Obviously, Donovan Ezeraku is a rookie. He's got a 55 run defense grade. Maris Leofau under 50. Mozzie Smith, 48. Peyton Turner, 46. Perion Winfrey, the veteran D tackle they brought in, 41. And then you've got some other additions to the front 7 like Kenneth Murray and Solomon Thomas that we have seen struggle in run defense for a long time. When I was screaming all offseason that they haven't actually found any real solutions to their run defense problem, I think we're kind of sort of seeing that. And then it only gets worse, obviously, if Micah Parsons isn't on the field for any amount of time with the contract situation. They were tied for the second lowest run defense grade in the league last year. Through 2 weeks of preseason, I believe they have the lowest run defense grade in the league by a decent margin. This is the kryptonite of this team, especially if there's any reason Parsons wouldn't play or something were to happen there. But I really think I'm just extremely worried, especially at D tackle and at linebacker, how in the world this team is going to stop the run, especially when you're playing Philadelphia and Washington in the same division and some other teams in the NFC that really like to run the football. You think about the Rams and Atlanta and Minnesota and Detroit and even now Chicago with Ben Johnson. I mean, Arizona, there's so many teams that want to run the ball, and there's so many weeks on their schedule that the Cowboys are going to be at a massive disadvantage. Again, try not to overreact to things in preseason, but when it's the same things we've seen for the last 2 to 3 years, and it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of solutions in-house, this is a huge problem for me for Dallas week to week. We're going to talk about it a lot during the season, I'm sure. I think the offense will be better with Dak healthy and George Pickens in, Tyler Booker at guard, the offensive line getting better, but this run defense is a serious problem, and I don't think I've seen anything so far in 2 preseason games that makes me feel any better about it.
Yeah, it's a little bit like, what we talked about with Carolina. Carolina, I'm still a little worried with their pass rush. Now, I'm more worried about Dallas's run defense than I am about Carolina's pass rush, but it's sort of that same thing. It's like, hey, this was an Achilles heel for you last year. You have to be much, much better. It's not just marginally better. You have to be much, much better as one of the worst run defense teams in the NFL last season, and Dallas absolutely has to be that. On the Ravens side of things, really impressed with Andrew Voorhees, specifically sort of how he was winning this game. We talked about him as one of the top 5 graded players. He had an 85.9 overall grade in this one against Dallas. He's replacing Patrick McCarry, who is no longer on the team, moved on in free agency. In this game, Andrew Voorhees, 91.6 run blocking grade. Actually, that's through 2 games. 91.6 run blocking grade through the first 2 games of the preseason. So consistency there, even larger sample size. You love to see that elite run blocking grade because, obviously Lamar Jackson is who he is, but so much of that offense running through what Derrick Henry was able to do last season. Dalton, here's a little bit more of a PFF specific stat here. For Voorhees, 57.1 positively graded run blocking plays on outside zone runs. Outside, I think when people think about Derrick Henry, they just think, between the tackles, halfback smash, just straight up the middle, right up the B gap. And sure, Derrick Henry can do these things, but Derrick Henry is also quite the zone runner as well. And so for Voorhees to have nearly a 60% positively graded run blocking play percentage on outside zone runs fits exactly into, I think, what the Baltimore Ravens want to do and how versatile they want to be as a rushing attack. So I love that number for them. Derrick Henry, 91.7 rushing grade last year on outside zone concepts. It's a big reason why he was one of the highest graded. I think he was the highest graded rusher that we had last season. And so for them to still be a strong outside zone run blocking team is going to be huge for them as they're putting Voorhees in there for Macari this upcoming season. So love to see that from Voorhees. Love to see him be that ass kicker that he was in college, now getting his chance to do that at the NFL level. So that's a big deal with him playing well in that regard.
No, absolutely. He's locking down that starting left guard job. And if their offensive line is even better than it was last year, because it was solid, but it wasn't like the best, an elite unit in the NFL, if it's even better because Voorhees is playing anything close to that, just another ridiculous year that Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry are going to have in the backfield.
All right, next game, your New York Jets. The Subway Series. Is this still called the Subway Series?
Well, the Mets Yankees is the Subway Series. I believe this is unofficially called the MetLife Bowl. I think that's what they go with there.
Nah, I don't like that.
I don't love it either. But there's already a Subway Series, and you don't have to take the subway to get from one stadium to the other because they play in the same place. So there's got to be something else. Or I mean, you could call it, I don't know, the Port Authority Series. You usually got to take a bus to get out there. I've done it, but we got to find something. All I know is Abdul Carter already hates the Jets, which is not, I'm sure, not a good sign. I don't know if did you see this tweet from Abdul Carter?
No, hold on. I didn't see his tweet. I saw him get obliterated on the chip block. He was smart.
He was basically like just brushing that off and pretty much said, "Oh, we still put belt to ass. Don't worry about it." Like he's already in on this Jets-Giants rivalry, even though we don't play in the regular season for another 2 years. So, yeah, it's great. That's a great feeling that Abdul Carter, the elite player that he's going to be, already hates the Jets. That's a good sign. That's good.
I need people in the chat who are watching this show live. Give us some name suggestions for Jets Giants, because like Dalton said, we don't get it in the regular season, but we get it every single preseason. We need a name.
You do know what you've done. There's going to be some bad ones here.
We need this. Roy says it's the Snoopy Bowl.
I've heard that. Yeah, no, I've heard that too because the MetLife thing. Yeah, that's Snoopy's are on. I guess now he's their official mascot. He's in the commercial.
Roy says that there's a trophy for it. Okay, I need to see this. The Snoopy Bowl is fine, but I still want you guys to get creative.
Giants fans probably just call it the Victor Cruz Bowl. Honestly.
Yeah, that they probably do. Ray said the Meadowlands Melee. Planet X said the Battle for New Jersey. I like the Meadowlands Melee.
It's not bad.
It's good. It's good. Keep thinking about it, guys. This is good. This is a good start here. Anyways, in this game, the Giants did indeed put belt to ass here. Won this game 31-12. Sorry, Dalton. The top 5 graded players that we have for the New York Giants. Safety Macari Page with an 87.1. Wide receiver Bo Collins with an 86.8. Linebacker Deontay Johnson at 86.5. Cornerback Nick Jones an 83.9. And cornerback Cordell Flott with an 83.5. On the Jets side of things, look at wide receiver Quinn Skinner. Top of the list, 91.9. Love to see that. Cornerback Jarek Bernard Converse with an 87.2. Safety Dean Clark, 86.7. Cornerback Brandon Stevens, an 84.9. And edge rusher Kingsley Jonathan with a 82.7. What are we talking about here, Dalton? The Meadowlands Melee, what are we talking about here?
We're talking about the hype that Giants fans have for their new first-round quarterback, Jackson Dart. And he did have a very good night. Managed the offense well, 14 of 16, 137 yards. Passing TD over the middle to Greg Dulcich, a quarterback sneak for a rushing touchdown. Then people are going to wonder, okay, that's a really good night, and I believe he completed his last 12 or 13 passes, and they're going to go, why does he only have a 66.8 passing grade? And listen, I want to start this off with, okay, that's decent, right? That's obviously a decent grade. That's solid enough considering what he was asked to do. But you're talking about a 4-yard average depth of target and almost 80% of his yards coming after the catch. So not asked to throw downfield in this game too often, right? Obviously ran the system well. You're talking about a team and playing against a team of backups in the Jets. That the Jets, if there's anything I've learned about him in this preseason, I think their starting lineup can compete in a lot of games. they don't have very much depth. So when you're talking about playing this crew of Jets 2s and 3s, it's not great. It was a conservative game plan for Dart. He was 5 for 5 on screen passes. It was a lot of working underneath and allowing the athletes on the outside to get things done. Solid day. I'm not going to tell you it wasn't a positive. It was good to see him go out there against a defense that was clearly overmatched and dominate him in the way that he needed to. But the reason the grades aren't super high, he's not up in the high 80s or 90s, is that he just didn't throw the ball downfield very much. So it was a good night. I'm in the pump the brakes camp where it's like, listen, I agree that Russell Wilson should be your starter. We saw that especially with the deep ball to Bo Collins, and the one that was intercepted was really a miscommunication where Collins ran the wrong route. Him and Wilson just didn't see the same things. And Bo Collins, look, I like the way he's looked, but he's not going to be a major contributor to this Giants team. Wilson, he wants to be out there with Malik Neighbors and Darius Slayton and those guys, right? So I'm in the camp that when people ask, okay, how long before Jackson Dart should start? And for this season, I would say as long as possible. Because I think Russell Wilson, people are still, I don't know why they trash Russell Wilson so much, because he still had a pretty solid year last year, and I think the deep ball is something that was obviously missing from this offense, and he can bring that. I think they should still start Russell Wilson for as long as they're in any sort of contention, for as long as they're winning games. He should be the starter because I still think there's adjustments for Dart to make when it comes to getting acclimated to an NFL offense. Brian Daboll's offense is not a simple one by any means, but it was a positive night for Dart. Wilson should still be the starter, I think, no question.
Oh, Dalton's the guy who wants to pump the brakes on rookies being exciting. Wow, I'm shocked. No, I'm kidding. I also agree with you.
That's what we do.
Look, I'm not trolling anybody here. The game is the game. We got to do what we got to do. But I did think that it was funny when people were tweeting out the highlight package of Jackson Dart from this game. And the first 3 plays were screens with a lot of yards after catch. It's like, all right, okay. No, he had some nice throws over the middle. That was good to see. Honestly, the biggest takeaway from Jackson Dart, and looking comfortable and confident, is I don't know how much longer Jameis Winston's on this team, right? I think Jameis Winston could easily get traded now if you are definitively saying that Russell Wilson is your starter. And if Jackson Dart does not look completely lost, you're probably okay with him being QB2. So if you can get something for Jameis, if there's a team out there, I don't think it's going to be the Browns, but
to be honest with you, the Jets could be a candidate because Tyrod Taylor is working through some sort of injury right now and hasn't played. And we've been running after Justin Fields, Adrian Martinez, and Brady Cook out there as the backups. If Tyrod Taylor is out for any extended period, I think they could be a team in on a Kenny Pickett or a Jameis Winston. It could be the Jets.
Wednesday in the chat is saying we can call this game the Meadowlands preseason landlord-tenant dispute.
Okay.
I think it's funny.
It's actually very New York now that I think about it. That's a very New York name for it.
But I do think that it's accurate. I do think that it's accurate there. Roy said the Rams potentially for Jameis. I don't know, man. The Rams, we'll get to the Rams in a second. They're actually the next game that we have here. But, Stetson Bennett just won't go away. Stetson Bennett just will not go. All right.
He's a winner, Trevor.
We'll get to the Rams in a second. He is a winner. People forget that. For the Jets, though, I do want to point out Quentin Skinner. I mentioned him as the highest graded player that we have for the Jets. It's a wide receiver room that I think has a lot of names for the Jets, but it's a lot of wide receivers who might not be long for the team, right? Like, Alan Lazard, how much longer? I know he's on the Jets this year. How much longer is he going to be on the Jets, right? I mean, Josh Reynolds kind of the same way. Tyler Johnson. I mean, you have a chance to really have a lot of these young guys potentially as practice squad or bottom of the active game day roster players. Arian Smith is the one that Jets fans obviously like to talk about a lot. Jamal Pritchett as well, shouting him out there. Malachi Corley is another one who is I don't know if Malachi Corley is going to be on the team for a long time. But anyways, Skinner at least will be a deep threat type of a player for you. When you look at the last 3 years that he had when he was at Kansas, average depth of target of just over 16, just over 19, and then just over 21. So he is truly that deep threat type of wide receiver. And I think that we saw that this past week in the preseason. So at least I think he could be valuable for them in a streamlined sense. And if you're really looking for guys who might be able to just be rostered players who you're giving a chance to some of these younger guys, maybe he is somebody that you'd at the very least keep on the practice squad. I don't think he's going to make the active game day roster, but keeping on the practice squad, keeping him around. Yeah, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world there for the Jets. Let's get to the Chargers and the Rams. Again, we have another battle of LA. Like, what do we have a nickname for this one? Chargers, Rams. This one's new, right? I mean, like the Jets and the Giants have. Been New York teams.
This one's easy. This one's really. I don't know if this has already been suggested, but I just figured it out in my. It's the SoFi Showdown. It's that simple.
It's good. No, alliteration. It's good. It's good.
Boom. Nailed
People
it.
love it.
Somebody back there get it patented.
Showdown. I don't know if it's insulting enough. I feel like it's got to be more insulting or more violent. One of the two. When we're talking about, because you got to think about this, Dalton. It's the preseason. We got to get people excited. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
The MetLife melee. Maybe you see a little preseason brawl. Maybe you get a little preseason brawl in there. I don't know. I'm not encouraging it, but hey, maybe it happens. Obviously, Abdul Carter's not a big fan of the Jets. I think that attitude might be able to permeate over the next couple of years.
I'm sure. Look, things in LA though, they're usually a little more relaxed, Trevor. People, it's the summer. They're hanging out inside. They're in a dome, right? Like you got two fan bases with two good teams that made the playoffs. It's more relaxed. It's the West Coast, right? New York, the two teams have a combined one playoff appearance since 2011. They're quite irritated. I think it makes more sense there with the Jets and Giants.
You were so close to just calling it soft football. I could feel it. I could feel the coach in you being like, get this air conditioning out of my game.
It's not the Pac-12 now. Relax, Trev. It's not the way the SEC people talk about the Pac-12 and how that used to be. Come on now. Easy. They all play hard in the NFL.
Brian said the slop fest in SoFi. Come on. See, it was pretty close. Rams win this game 23-22. Let's take a look at the top 5 players for the Los Angeles Rams in this one. Edge rusher Kier Thomas with a 90.2. Offensive tackle KT Levison with an 89.8. Offensive guard Justin Dedich with an 85.5. Defensive tackle Deshaun Johnson with an 85.1. Defensive tackle Jack Heflin with a 78.0. And then on the Charger side of things, safety Tony Jefferson, the vet, with an 86.2. Wide receiver Trey Harris. He's looking good. 85.3. Quarterback Trey Lance, also looking good. 80.6. Wide receiver Keandre Lambert-Smith, a 75.7. And then cornerback Miles Purchase with a 71.3. What are we talking about here, Dalton?
Multiple things just within that top 4 of the Chargers. First of all, I'm pretty sure Tony Jefferson was their highest graded player last week, and he's like some kind of preseason legend. I forget who it was for us that tweeted this out, but Tony Jefferson's grades in the preseason are like some sort of ridiculous. So that's one thing in a really good
for his career?
I think so. I think somebody had mentioned this where it's like multiple seasons now where like preseason Tony Jefferson is like the greatest player we've ever seen. I'm pretty sure that's a thing. Two, especially in this game compared to the quarterback situation behind Justin Herbert, the way they looked in this game between Trey Lance and Taylor Heineke, I think Lance really might be the backup here. I think he went to the perfect situation with Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman, and especially the way that they can use his athleticism to their advantage. And then I think the biggest story that pertains to this starting lineup is those two receivers you mentioned in the top 4, Trey Harris and Keandre Lambert-Smith. I think they've both really impressed this team, and they're going to play a role on this team, especially now Quentin Johnston suffered the concussion in this game. Harris and Lambert-Smith both as vertical threats. It feels like, I mentioned before the Lions having a type at wide receiver. Jim Harbaugh has a type at wide receiver, and it's just guys that get vertical. I think Trey Harris, one thing that concerned me coming out of the draft was a lack of route diversity and a lack of twitchiness in some of his routes. But in this offense, he can run a lot of the same vertical tree that he did at Ole Miss, and he can have success. You saw that in this game with 6 catches and 85 yards. Keandre Lambert-Smith, kind of the same way at Penn State and in Auburn. Really, they only got vertical with him in those offenses, but they're going to do that in this offense with the way they want to run the football. They want to throw it to Ladd McConkey underneath, and then these guys on the outside, if they're just burners who can get deep and allow Justin Herbert to be Justin Herbert, that was the big thing, is that he had his best season throwing the ball vertically last year. I think they're in the perfect role, both Harris and Lambert-Smith. I think they're both going to be key parts of this passing game.
Yeah, I think that those two guys looking good is really important for this team. One that we were like, okay, where are the options for Justin Herbert to throw the ball last year? There just weren't a lot that he felt super confident about outside of Ladd McConkey. Again, it's been a theme of this show, but I'll say it again. Trey Harris looking good in the ways that we thought he would look good is really important. Sideline, on the line of scrimmage, deep threat, vertical wide receiver. That is how he wanted Ole Miss. That was why his grades were so high, and we are seeing that with him in the preseason already. You love when you draft a player and the exact vision that you had for them, what they did well in college, is already showing up early in the NFL, because that means there might be something more in the tank, right? If it's very natural for them to win in ways that they won in college, then you can, okay, year 2, year 3, year 4, now you can be a player who evolves past what you were even great at in college, and a reason why you were drafted for a team. So for Trey Harris to already be looking good in the area that we wanted him to look good, not only does it mean a lot, in my opinion, for the Chargers downfield passing game, but it also means a lot towards you playing above whatever your draft position was, because you can evolve now as a player. You already have sort of established what you did well in college. Now it's all about getting better. So I'm really excited about Trey Harris. I think he landed in a really good spot, especially with Justin Herbert and the capabilities of his arm. And I do agree with you there. I think Trey Lance is looking really good as well. Confidence for quarterbacks. I said that it wouldn't be the last time that we talked about that when we were talking about it early on in the show. And I think Trey Lance finally looks like he's in a place where he is confident. And I think that matters a lot as somebody who's going to win that quarterback 2 battle. I'm sticking with the Chargers. I know we talked, but we want to kind of go with both teams, but for the Rams, it's sort of tough for me, because I think the biggest storyline with the Rams is with Matthew Stafford at the quarterback position. Obviously, Stetson Bennett played really well, and he showcased, I mean, we joked around, but not really joking around. Stetson Bennett just, he won't go away. He was somebody who, Kirby Smart talked about this when he was at Georgia, right, as a walk-on. He's like, I just couldn't cut the kid. Like, I could not get rid of him, and he eventually works his way to being a starting quarterback, being a back-to-back national champion. And even when he's been in the NFL, he's looked pretty fearless. And I think that he looked fearless again in this preseason game. So that, to me, how good that he looks is important, because Jimmy Garoppolo is not playing at all in this preseason. The reason why is because of the big unknown with Matthew Stafford's back. I'm not breaking any news. I'm not sharing any sort of like inside information here. I'd be worried about Stafford if I was a Rams fan. I really would. I mean, the deadlines that they have placed on him to practice and participate that he has not been able to, I think is very worrisome. I think that it is today that McVay is meeting with the media and maybe having a Matthew Stafford update. I hope. This team is so much fun with Matthew Stafford there. And I said this last year. If it's not a blizzard of a football game, I really do think the Rams had a legit chance to beat the Philadelphia Eagles in the playoffs last year. But it being a snow game, it's not how the Rams are built to play in those conditions and that weather. So it's never going to work out for them. But they were playing that well as a football team. And with Matthew Stafford, you can. Without him, it gets really murky. But anyways, back on the Chargers side of things, you mentioned those rookies on the offensive side of the ball. How about our boy R.J. Mickens? Right? The Chargers have played 3 games now because they played the Hall of Fame game. But he has played the most snaps out of anybody in the preseason so far. He's played over 150 snaps this preseason. Dalton, 91.0 overall grade. Come on. This is our dude. Played really well at Clemson. Just such a smart football player. Very versatile safety. He can play free safety roles for you. He's really good when he is attacking downhill. He's got those long arms to him to get up in the passing window, disrupt the catching point, and he just anticipates things really well. I think he's playing at a very smart level, and you only get those types of PFF grades in the preseason. Yes, for the big plays that you make, but also eliminating the bad plays and not being out of place, not having a lot of negative plays on your ledger. So R.J. Mickens also playing really well. It's just really good returns so far for the Chargers rookie class, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I have your Tony Jefferson stat, by the way. So it's the last 2 years. Last year, in 109 preseason snaps, 94.3 PFF grade. This year, 94.2. So for whatever reason, when he got to the Chargers, he's just the best player in football in the preseason, and obviously a contributor in the regular season as well, behind Derwin James and Alohi Gilman. And then you say it with Mickens also. I mean, we kid around, but this is a loaded group of safeties. I mean, this might front to back 1 through 4 or 5 be the best safety room in football. Obviously, you've got the Lions with their 2 guys. You've got the Ravens this year with their couple of guys with Hamilton and Starks. But this Chargers safety unit is a big reason that this defense is so good. And I believe they allowed the 3rd lowest rate of explosive pass plays in the league last year. When you have safeties like that, that's how it gets done.
Cardinals Broncos. Oh, what was the final score in this game? We didn't write this one down.
Oh, did I not?
I'm giving you a second.
Oh boy. Oh, hang on. This game, preseason. It's preseason for us too, Trevor. Wait,
we got it on the screen here. Broncos.
This game was 27 to 7. Nailed it.
Oh.
We got it. We got it first, guys. They're going to take the credit. We had it first. We had it. It's preseason for us
I
too.
don't know if I want. I don't know if I want to start a war with the people behind the glass that make the lower thirds. Okay, they have the power to. You remember the Max Chadwick quote?
Well, yeah. I mean, look at Jackson Dart. The Giants are Jackson Dart. The Giants are obviously winning the Super Bowl. It starts in the MetLife Bowl and it goes to the Super Bowl. Trev, that's how this works.
MetLife Melee.
Sorry, I had to. Okay, I had to. You know.
Somebody said SoFi Slugfest, by the way.
Okay, that's better. Actually, that's a better one. I'm in on that. Slugfest it's more violent than a showdown. You never know. Anyways, a showdown could be anything. You know.
That's what I'm saying. Like a showdown could be nothing. Slugfest.
Slugfest is good. A SoFi Slugfest.
Great game, by the way. Might need to bring those back. They never will. The Broncos win this game 27-7. So the Broncos, they get first shout out here for the top 5 graded players. Edge rusher Andrew Farmer with a 93.0. Linebacker Jordan Turner with a 91.3. Offensive guard Calvin Throckmorton with a 90.3. Wide receiver Michael Bandy with an 86.1. And then edge rusher Garrett Nelson with an 83.6. On Arizona's side of things, quarterback Jacoby Brissett. The offense looked good when Brissett was in there, and the numbers reflect that. Not so good when he wasn't in there, but we'll get to that in a second. Brissett earned an elite 92.1 overall grade. Defensive tackle Kyron Barrs with an 80.7. Linebacker Michael Walker with a 78.6. Cornerback Elijah Jones with a 73.8. And then edge rusher Benton Whitley with a 70.0. What are we talking about here, Dalton?
I think it's still the Broncos kind of figuring out. Now, obviously, they have Cortland Sutton. They have Devon Villay. They have Marvin Mims, who's a really explosive option where you can get the football in his hands. But I think more depth at wide receiver is something they're trying to build. 2 guys that I'm looking at are Pat Bryant, the rookie this year, and Troy Franklin, who was a rookie last year. Both of them really good games in this one. Bryant with 4 catches for 70 yards, 77.9 receiving grade. Troy Franklin had 2 touchdowns. So I think as you build out, maybe they don't have a superstar wide receiver, but they've got a really good young room coming together. Obviously, Sutton's the top guy, but there's a lot of young players in this Broncos wide receiver unit that they can distribute the ball to. I think Franklin, obviously, with the size that he had, and it was good to see him make 2 contested catches because I think that's something he struggled with at Oregon. He's very light, 170-ish pounds, right, even at his size. So I think that's something he's really worked on to get bigger and stronger and make those contested catches. And then Pat Bryant, I'm going to be honest, when he's in the game, Trevor, he is going to run in routes after in route after in route after in route. He's going to be the possession receiver over the middle when he's on the field. But I think these 2 guys having really positive days, and I believe Jarrett Stidham through 2 preseason weeks is leading the league with a 90 passing grade. He's been outstanding too. So I think you really feel good about some of the offensive depth that's coming together here for the Broncos.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, however deep they can get that wide receiver room, guys standing out, I mean, you're never going to shy away from too many wide receivers standing out in the preseason. I mean, you absolutely love that for the Broncos to be able to take that next step. A lot of people think they could be the best defense in the NFL this upcoming season. And if Bo Nix takes that next step under Sean Payton's offense, now we're talking about a team that, dare I say, could potentially win that division instead of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Dare you? No, we're probably doing a predictions episode at some point. Dare you, like 2.5 weeks from now, do that? Do you dare?
I think I might. On the other side of things, for the Arizona Cardinals, this is a team that I am excited about. I'm excited about seeing the Cardinals, but I will admit this team, it feels like over the last couple of years, specifically last year, when you go back to some of their struggles, almost midway through the season, they were in the lead for that division race, and then they just really sputtered as the season went on, and it feels like that's sort of been the story with Kyler Murray for most of that era there in Arizona. It can look really good for the Cardinals, but then like really bad looks really bad. And I'm worried about how wide the peaks and valleys still are for the Arizona Cardinals, specifically when the depth players have gotten in there this preseason. In quarters 2 through 4, so I kind of tried to take out, okay, let's get most of the starters out of the game. Let's talk about just the depth here for the Arizona Cardinals. In quarters 2 through 4 this preseason, they are 17th in defensive grade as a team overall at a 65.7. So fine, but back half of the league, just back half of the league. The 30th in offensive grade at a 54.1. They only have 3 points through 2 games in the second half of their 2 preseason games. I don't see a lot of difference making depth that we have here for the Cardinals. And that might not be something that shows up for them, at the beginning of the season, but football is a violent game. Guys get hurt on your roster. You got to have guys that can fill in, especially even if they don't get hurt. fatigue throughout the season is a big thing, and you've got to be able to have a deep roster. You've got to be able to lean on all 53 players that you have week in and week out. And for the Cardinals, I'm getting a little bit worried about the depth. Again, there's no panic meter that we're slamming here in the preseason, but I've seen sort of this trend where you looked great with Jacoby Brissett. The offense looked terrible without him. And I just sort of wonder, does an injury or two derail this team? And I would really hate for that to be the case, because I think that they've acquired a lot of talent. I think they could be a lot better this season. But I'm a little bit skeptical about the depth that they have through the first two preseason games here with the Cardinals. Any thoughts on that one before we move on?
I think it's a great thing to note with a lot of teams in the preseason. I look at certain teams, and some of them are the best in football, right? When you look at Philadelphia and Kansas City and Baltimore, right, you go, okay, they have a lot of players, even on the second unit, that can really play. And then you look at some other teams that I think depth is a big problem, right? The Cardinals in certain areas. I look at the Jets. I mentioned it before, and I go, I think their starting 22 could compete in a lot of games. I think there's injuries, it's a 3 or 4 of those key guys that could derail the entire thing, and they look like a mess, right? You mentioned like a Garrett Wilson out at wide receiver, or, Quinnen Williams in their interior unit, something like that, where those teams that lack depth, it's a 17-game season. If you don't have it, you saw it with the Eagles last year, right? Nakobe Dean gets hurt in the playoffs. Oren Burks comes right in. He's just fine, right? You saw that, at certain other positions, but I think that's a big factor that needs to be taken into account in this preseason, is that these coaches, these GMs are trying to build the whole 53, because you really need to be good throughout the entire 53-man roster, if not more than that, to really get through the entire season and get through a deep postseason run, if that's what you're trying to do. So there are certain spots on the Cardinals, I think at linebacker, at cornerback, even at wide receiver, we're trying to figure out who that second guy is behind Marvin Harrison Jr. So, that lack of depth is something that can hurt you, especially in the later weeks in the season.
Ray is saying, watching Pat Bryant, I kept thinking of Devin Arash-Mashadu, if anybody remembers him.
Wow. Yeah, that's a thought. Okay, we're going back. That's a flashback. That's just
did not think we were getting that name here on the show. Good pull, 7th rounder. What draft was that? It was like 05. When did he get drafted?
Oof.
Hold on.
Hold please. You might be on it more before me.
Hold on.
2006.
I was close. Damn. All right. Good guess, Trev. Good job.
2000. He was you said 7th rounder in 06. Yep.
Yeah.
Look at that.
In 06.
Wow.
06. Didn't think we were getting that name in here. Good shout out, Ray. Love that.
Bears.
Jacksonville Jaguars and the New Orleans Saints. This one ends in a tie. 17-17. An abomination. Should just have an Oklahoma drill.
Real quick, that last interception, Jonas Sanker's foot was absolutely out of bounds with 1 second.
100%.
It was absolutely 100%. Out of bounds with 1 second left, and the Saints should have got a chance to kick that. The Saints should have won this game. The referees wanted to go home. They wanted to absolutely go home. Oh no, his foot was absolutely out of bounds with 1 second.
It was sick.
No question.
It was sick. It was an embarrassment to the integrity of the game. There was a second left on that play clock.
Preseason,
and we should have gotten
highway
a chance.
Robbery.
It was. It was tough. Were they in field goal range? They would have been in field goal range. Right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It would have been a 50-yarder, maybe something like that.
Now I wanted was Cam Little on the other side for the Jags, right? Their kicker. I wanted him to get a chance to kick an 80-yarder, because what did he kick the other day? Like a 72-yarder?
70 last week.
Line the kid up from 75. I don't care. It's preseason. I wanted to see that, to be honest with you. Anyways, this is a tie. So I guess the Jags have more highly graded players. So we'll go to the Jags first. Cornerback, Kenai Lovely with a 95.8. Linebacker Ventrell Miller, Gator grade, with a 92.6. Offensive tackle Fred Johnson, also Gator grade, 87.1. Tight end Hunter Long with an 86.7. Safety Daniel Thomas with an 84.9 on New Orleans side of things. Cornerback Rajon Wright with a 92.1. Linebacker Jalen Ford a 90.5. Wide receiver Mason Tipton with a 79.6. Cornerback Quincy Riley with a 74.4. And then quarterback Tyler Shuck with a 74.3. What are we talking here in this game, Dalton?
So Trevor Lawrence, to me, looked solid in his first game action under Liam Cohen, and I think the big number that I'm going to be looking at is average depth of target. Last year for Lawrence, that was 9.9 yards, second highest in the NFL behind Anthony Richardson. One of the themes for Lawrence last year was trying to force it. He was trying to carry this football team. He was trying to carry, a bad defense and a not great running game, and he's really trying to make all the big-time throws that he can to carry this team, and that got him in trouble. It creates bad habits. In this offense, we saw with Liam Cohen and Baker Mayfield last year, he reeled him in. Baker Mayfield was the second highest graded passer on short throws under 10 yards last season behind Joe Burrow. He's going to try to bring that same formula. Lawrence had an 82.5 passing grade in this game, completed 8 of his 10 passes, 6 for 6 on throws under 10 yards with an 83.6 passing grade. Really, really good stuff. This is what you're going to see with Brian Thomas, with Trevor Lawrence. You're going to see the emphasis being on, hey, yards after catch, let them do the work. We will take shots when it's necessary. But you were swinging for the fences way too often last year. This is really exact. And Travis Hunter didn't even play in this game. He had an upper body injury, missed this game. But you could see the difference when you're talking about Thomas and Parker Washington working underneath. He had a touchdown in this game. I just think Liam Cohen's influence on Trevor Lawrence and reeling it in, dialing it back to go, okay, hey, work the chains first and then swing for the fences when I call for it. Don't do it the other way around. I really like the approach from Lawrence a little bit that we saw in this game. I think it's a really positive development.
Yeah, I think that he looked good. I do. And sort of my note for this one for Jacksonville is Fred Johnson also looked good at offensive tackle. Now, it was at left tackle, and I feel like they have their left tackle already in Walker Little. They're really trying to figure out right tackle, but maybe Fred Johnson can flip over to right tackle and feel good about that. Anton Harrison didn't play in this one, but Anton Harrison's been up and down throughout his career, and I know that Liam Cohen sort of put that right tackle spot up for grabs earlier in this offseason, and Anton Harrison has played well. I don't know if he's grabbed that by the reins, so somebody else might be getting that right tackle spot for Jacksonville, and it might end up being Fred Johnson, who played really well in this game. I thought Spencer Rattler played good. Obviously, lead the team down, scoring a touchdown, getting that 2-point conversion. I thought that was very nice to see from him. I think he's the QB2 on this team. Obviously, they're going to give Tyler Shuck the first crack at it, but yeah, I like the interception from Jonas Sanker. Yeah, he's somebody that I was pretty high on. I thought that Danny Stutzman played really well as well from the New Orleans Saints, but I think the big storyline with this one really was Trevor Lawrence. And I think that he did look good. I think specifically for Jacksonville, from what I've been reading from a lot of people who cover that team, like penalties has been a big issue. I remember reading an article from John Shipley, who covers the team from Sports Illustrated. He was talking about how penalties have just been a consistent issue for this team during training camp, especially during joint practices, which would definitely be a step down from what they were last year. They had the 8th fewest penalties in the NFL, and so a team that was sort of riddled with penalties would be new for them, and they didn't really have those penalties this past game, especially with the first team that was out there, and so it felt good. It felt a lot more on schedule, so I'm excited to see Jacksonville. The Jags, they play the Carolina Panthers in week 1, and to me, that's going to be an exciting week 1 game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. On the Saints side of it, I'm not entirely sure. I know he got to play the entire first half in this game, but Rattler pretty much got the same thing last week with most of the starters. I don't know that I'm entirely sure that one or the other has won this job yet. It wouldn't shock me at all to see them both play again next week and for this to get dragged out further. We will see with the Saints quarterback situation, because I don't think either one has been necessarily spectacular. There's been moments. Rattler had 2 big-time throws yesterday. Chuck had one over the middle on a deep over route where he really threaded the needle, but there's also been moments where the pressure's gotten to both, and they've both been, I think, a little bit conservative in their approach overall. So this is one I don't think this quarterback battle is over necessarily yet. I know it's the 2nd round pick. They probably want Chuck to start, but it sounds like it's awfully close between the two.
All right, last game we're talking about here. I think it's the one that people really want us to talk about, because it's a lot of Caleb Williams talk. Buffalo Bills and the Chicago Bears. The Bears, boy, you want to talk about putting belts to asses here. 38-0. What a win. I mean, look, again, the results don't matter in the preseason, but 38-0? That kind of matters a little bit. That matters a little bit. That's a confident football team walking in there and playing that game. So let's look at the top 5 graded players that we have for the Chicago Bears here in this one. Tight end Colson Loveland. Look, our cutoff here, normally when we put up the top 5 is 10 or more snaps. Colson Loveland had 9. I don't care. I wanted to give him a shout out here because I think that the talking point of what the Bears are trying to do on offense, you needed to see Colson Loveland here. So Colson Loveland at the very top, their rookie they drafted 10th overall, 91.5. And then right behind him is the other tight end. It's Cole Kmet with a 91.3. Caleb Williams right behind them with an 88.9 on the day. Offensive guard Ryan Bates with an 86.5. And then offensive guard Jordan McFadden with an 84.8. On Buffalo's side of things, edge rusher Michael Hoyt with a 76.1 is the highest graded player from Buffalo. Safety Wandale Owens with a 75.9. Offensive guard Mike Edwards a 74.3. Wide receiver Christian Wilkerson with a 71.6. And then cornerback Jamarcus Ingram with a 70.4. What do we talk about here, Dalton?
I mean, you already know. We're talking about Caleb Williams. That's all anybody in Chicago wants to talk about, right? As good as he looked in this game. I mean, I think you just saw a guy, and I think you've seen over 2 preseason games, even though Williams only played in this one. Tyson Bagents played well. Case Keenum played well last week. Caleb Williams played extremely well last night. The influence of Ben Johnson on this offense is obvious. That's what you're looking for. You've got a brand new interior offensive line. You've got Colson Loveland, Luther Burden, DJ Moore. Cole Kmet had a really good night, obviously. If they're going to get in this 12 personnel and it's going to look that dynamic, man, oh man, we've really got something working. But the biggest thing, Caleb Williams last night, 86.6 passing grade, 6 for 10. And he looked confident, right? He would take his 3-step drops. He would take one hitch. He would throw the football. Everything was on time. And the biggest number that I had coming out of this game, 2.6 second average time to throw. Last year for the season, he was over 3 seconds. There was only one game last season where he had below a 2.6 second average time to throw. I think when you talk about the exact things that you would want to see, and I know it's the Bills' twos, and it wasn't a very good unit. The Bills' starting defense wasn't a great unit last year anyway, but Caleb Williams throwing the football accurately and on time. And even a couple of times when he was under pressure, I think about even, there was a screen off to his left that he dirted because it wasn't there. Don't force it. I'm all about it. You don't have to force things late in the play. We know you can do special things outside of the pocket, but his success in this offense is going to be determined by his ability to throw the ball on time. On night one, it was spectacular. He made every throw. I think that's really going to be the biggest thing. If we see this for more than 10 dropbacks, we have a situation in Chicago all of a sudden because Ben Johnson has completely flipped the script on this. That was the biggest thing with Caleb Williams last year. Not a whole lot of success throwing the ball on time. It just never appeared that there was a clear offensive plan. We know Ben Johnson has a plan, and Caleb Williams with his footwork, with his accuracy, with his timing looked really, really good last night.
The results don't matter, as we say, but the games do. The games absolutely do. And what mattered most from this game was how confident Caleb Williams looked in Ben Johnson's offense. And to be honest, I'm not doing this as an overreaction. I am very in on what this offense can be. And in fact, I got a little bet for you, Dalton. I placed a bet last night after I watched Caleb Williams operate. Caleb Williams to be a 4,000-yard passer.
First time ever.
It would be the first time ever for the Chicago Bears. Is plus 250 on DraftKings. I bet that last night. And the reason why isn't just because of some preseason game. It's because of a lot of factors. The first factor is Ben Johnson himself. When you look at the last 3 years that Ben Johnson was the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, now obviously it's not a one-on-one, but think about how good Ben Johnson has been as the offensive orchestrator for that team. When you look at those 3 years, all 3 seasons that he was the offensive coordinator, Jared Goff was not only a 4,000-yard passer, he was a 4,000-yard passer by a good amount, comfortably a 4,000-yard passer. In 2022 is the first year that Ben Johnson was the offensive coordinator. They were 15th in passing grade as a team, 71.8. They were 4th in EPA per pass, and they were 7th in total passing yards in the NFL. The next year, his second year as offensive coordinator, 2023, they were 5th in total passing grade, 85.2. They were 6th in EPA per pass, and they were 4th in total passing yards per game. And last year as the offense coordinator with the Lions, they were 10th in overall passing grade at an 88.8. They were 2nd in EPA per pass, and they were 2nd in total passing yards. All 3 years that Ben Johnson was the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, they were top 7 in the NFL in total passing yards, and they were better every single season. What also goes into this is who the Bears are facing. In 10 of their 17 games this upcoming season, they are facing offenses that finished in the top 10 last year in points per game. This team's going to have to score. I think Chicago's defense can be good. I certainly do. I don't think that they're going to be terrible. But this team is going to have to score. When you look at what they have on the ground, their rushing options, I think that they are going to want to throw the football as a means to staying ahead on the scoreboard, especially given how confident Caleb Williams looked in the time to throw category. You mentioned this. His time to throw in that game against the Buffalo Bills, 2.6. 2.6 was so much faster than what he was last year. You mentioned it was over 3. It was a 3.07. That was his average last season. During his last year when he was at USC, his junior year, it was a 3.22. And when you take that 2.6 and you look at the averages in the NFL last season, Dalton, that average would have been the 4th fastest time to throw in the NFL, with the average number among starting quarterbacks that had at least 300 dropbacks of a 2.77. All of this, historical data from Ben Johnson, how Caleb Johnson looked last night, I think it happens. I think it absolutely happens, especially to get it at a number like plus 250, plus 225, plus 250, something around there. I am all in on this. I think our data of what Ben Johnson has been as an offensive coordinator, how he has instilled confidence in quarterbacks, and the early confidence that we saw from Caleb Williams in week 2, I'm in. Bears are getting a 4,000-yard passer this year, and I bet on it last night.
I think a big thing that you said there was the drop-off that the Bears have in running backs from obviously the Lions and Montgomery and Gibbs, right? And obviously, look, they're going to try to open holes for DeAndre Swift and Roshan Johnson and Kyle Monungai and whoever else is back there, right? Ben Johnson's going to want to run the football, but I think this is going to be a team that passes to set up the run. One last thing, when you look at 7 dropbacks last night without play action, average time to throw 2.29. If Caleb Williams is going to make decisions that quickly with his arm talent, with these weapons, with the way Ben Johnson can set him up for success with these concepts, then yes, I think you're absolutely right. And he's going to, look, if this team's going to make the playoffs, he's got to get to 4,000 yards. He's got the talent to do it. He's got the weapons to do it. He's got the offensive line to do it. He's got the play caller to do it. All of the evidence is there. He really just needs to go out and execute. Really encouraging stuff this week. I highly doubt we're going to see him this coming week in the third week of preseason, but they have to feel really good about what they saw yesterday in Chicago.
Yeah, the lines for them to make the playoffs or like win more than 8.5 games, like those lines weren't as juicy to me as the one where what I saw last night, I am confident in the confidence that those two guys had. We've talked about, or we've seen people talk about how Caleb has struggled during training camp, right? I mean, Ben Johnson came in and said, like, hey, we want his completion percentage in training camp to be over 70%, and he's not hitting that. And you say to your show, you go, whoa, okay, like, I don't love hearing that. I mean, you're going up against your own team. What happens when you go up against real NFL teams playing their first-team starters? But the more that we have sort of heard from training camp, it is that Ben Johnson is really deploying that old strategy of, we're going to throw everything at you. We are not going to baby you. We are going to make practice so hard that when you get into the game, you feel fully confident. And last night, I loved the tight end offense that they brought to it. Dude, first play action, roll out, Colston Loveland coming behind the line of scrimmage against the grain, boom, little pass. There it is. There's the confidence. The second play, something else I loved on that second play from him, it's a single safety look pre-snap, and then right as he's snapping the ball, the Bills sort of rotate to a too-high safety shell, but one of the deep safeties is more towards the numbers, and he sees that the middle of the field is open, rips it right to Cole Kmet. I think Cole Kmet is going to be the intermediate and deep middle of the field tight end for them, and I think Colston Loveland is going to be the pseudo wide receiver, the ex-wide receiver, the wing back sort of out of that backfield, the Y-leak player that you have sort of blocking initially, and then he's going to get off the block and he's going to become a receiver for you. They're going to use Colston Loveland as an offensive weapon, and they're going to use Cole Kmet a lot over that middle of the field. You throw in Rome Odunze, you throw in DJ Moore, and then, you know, how Luther Burden looked last night as well, certainly into the second half of that game. I'm really bullish on the Chicago Bears, and specifically Caleb Williams' production and his output this season, given how easy I felt like Ben Johnson was making it look for him and how confident he looked as a player. We've talked a lot about the Chicago Bears. You got anything on the Buffalo Bills? I'm a little worried about the Bills defense, but again, it's a preseason. I think they'll figure things out as the season gets going. They're still going to be one of the best teams in the NFL, but anything else on maybe the Buffalo Bills side of things before we get out of here?
No, but still playing mostly twos. I mean, I think we already know we're worried about the safety. We're worried about the safety position. I think the pass rush is probably going to look better. You look at T.J. Sanders had 3 pressures. Landon Jackson had 5 pressures. Deion Walker had 2. But I think this game for the Bills, really, you kind of toss it out the window a little bit. That's the only thing is it's safety, but I was already concerned about their safety position. So, I mean, they just didn't play really any of their starters at all in this game. So it's not like it's a game, it's 38-0. I'm not really all that concerned about the Bills, not anymore about anything that I wasn't concerned about before the game. So really not a whole lot to take away from them. I think this night was really just about Caleb Williams and that Bears offense.
If you like some of the numbers that we just rattled off there talking about the Bears and the Bills, you guys can see that all for yourself with a PFF Plus subscription. You can save $20 on an annual PFF Plus sub right now if you use that promo code EARLYBIRD. Now, today's the last day to do it, so you guys got to sign up to save that $20. Obviously, you can sign up for a PFF Plus subscription at any point in time, but you save yourself $20. Use that promo code EARLYBIRD and get that right now. You know you're going to use it throughout the season. If you still got fantasy football drafts to get to, the fantasy football cheat sheet, the projections, all that good stuff, all the data is right there for you to help absolutely rule your draft. When we get into the season, every single week, we're going to have the player prop tool absolutely humming. You're going to be able to see PFF data, trends, projections, everything to help you bet smarter there throughout the entire season. And then, of course, when we get into draft season as well, it's the fully unlocked mock draft simulator. It's the draft guide. It's all that great stuff. So a PFF Plus subscription, yeah, it's a great time to get it right now, but it is an annual subscription. You get this thing all year long, and I promise you're going to get great value for it. Go check it out, subscribe.pff.com, and save yourself that $20. If you're on the fence at all, you know you're going to get this eventually. Just save the $20 right now. Use the early bird special. Appreciate everybody watching the show. Man, we got a packed week for you. We got some more division previews coming for you. We got 2 more that we got this week. We got a best ball draft that we're doing for you as well on Wednesday. I'm getting to link up with Nathan Yonke to do another one of those. I'm very excited about it. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel so you're not missing any of that good stuff. Check out the college show channel as well. They're cranking all that good stuff. You got the game preview this week, and then, of course, throughout the entire season, Max and Dalton, they're covering college football in such a fun way. Obviously using a lot of PFF data, but covering it from a draft perspective as well. If you're subscribed to this channel, go and subscribe to their channel as well. For Dalton Wasserman, I'm Trevor Sikkema, saying thank you guys so much for watching the PFF NFL show. See you guys next time.